What is up, everyone? Happy Sunday. Although Monday's tomorrow, so I don't know how happy that makes everyone. But what's up? What is up? Oh, it's been a little bit of a crazy week as per usual. Had to do a bunch of adulting things before I started. Laundry. Cleaned a bunch of things like my ice maker and everything. What's up, Balloon? How's it going? I got a new t-shirt also at my recent cybersecurity conference I attended just last week. So, metadata, master of packets. I got a few other shirts as well. So, what's up on all the platforms, guys? What's up to the Twitch side, the Kick side, the YouTube side, the TikTok side? How's everyone doing? And I've noticed the connection's just a little bit weird. There was a storm that rolled through, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but we'll keep an eye on that as we move forward. It's still way better than the last ISP I was using, which that was just atrocious for multiple months, as we know. But yeah, it's I guess you could say the world and the country is still going to hell in a handbasket. But what else is new? Broke my arch again, back to Ubuntu. You know, it just so happens I was making some funny trolling posts a little bit. What was it I made over here? Hold on. I had something about Arch I made last night. Oh, yeah. It's on Blue Sky and Mastodon, if anyone cares. Just installed Arch Linux on my smart fridge. Now it refuses to chill anything unless I sudo it. I don't have a smart fridge, but it was funny as shit to think of. Just ran a middle Tor node, but saw no activity 3 minutes after a download speed spike. You're gonna have to, run it for a little while for it to be aware. Like, by a little while, I mean, like, you're going to probably have to run it for at least a few days before it actually gets awareness onto the entire network and you start getting traffic going through it. Although what's interesting is, I was going to talk about that later on, there was a story of a guy that actually was held in pre-trial for 3 years for running a Tor node. I just saw the blurb about it. We're going to read about that together later on in the stream. And definitely was a rights violation of... his rights to do something like that. The upload speed was not as active as the download speed, though. Like I said, you're gonna, it's gonna take some time for it to actually get awareness to the network, and then after a while, you'll then see active connections. You can't judge it by just, oh, I have it up for a few hours, or even a day or two. You're gonna need to keep that active for weeks before you start actually seeing, like, a good amount of data to figure out what's going on. Just finished upgrading your CPU. Nice! Yeah, I'm trying to do some upgrades myself. The ham radio PC that I set up, a little minis forum PC, is having a little issue, so I may be replacing it. I've picked out an inexpensive one, which I think has a Ryzen 5700U in it. It's a little bit older, but it's perfect for what I need. And then it's gonna have 16 gigs of RAM and a half a terabyte SSD in there, 256, which is way overkill for what I need for it. But I need it just to be able to run all my ham radio software, my software-defined radio stuff, when I'm seeing the waterfalls and everything, and then have an occasional Windows VM for the very few things that I have to run through a Windows VM to connect with. And eventually, down the road, we're gonna see about if I can do some fun things and show you on stream with ham radio. Like, we can pick up data, maybe go through the shortwave, see if we can pick up some number stations and some other fun things. I don't think I will actually comm on it on stream. There's a little bit that goes into that, and I like to leave a little bit of my ham stuff a little bit more private, but I do like to at least share the idea on the tech and everything there. Does your ISP know when you run a Tor node? Technically, yes, because Tor traffic is... you can tell that there's Tor traffic there, but they can't see what specifically is running on Tor. Now, you can do some things to help cover it, because like they'll see like metadata, things like that. But if you're doing unencrypted DNS connections, you know, over port 53, they definitely can see where you're connecting to and from things. But that's why you should be running DNS over TLS, or at least, you know, or DNS over HTTPS. They both have the same end goal. I personally run DNS over TLS on my pfSense firewall, so everything on the network runs over an encrypted DNS connection whenever I'm trying to look up things on websites and everything. But yeah, just configuring my DNS and proxy chains, and boom, it broke 3 times. Yep, that'll happen. Should I configure the data port on 443 on Tor node? I mean, you potentially can do that as a workaround. You'll have to check the documentation. It's been a while since I've run a Tor node myself, except for my little cryptocurrency nodes that happen to run over Tor, but that's a different thing. What do you recommend to learn before starting in cybersecurity? Networking. I always will urge networking knowledge before anything else. Of course, you know, there's the other things, you know, learn about Windows, Mac, Linux, and how they operate. I know a lot of people will say, like, you should focus on you're going to run across needing to know all 3 operating systems at various points. And you may not think Mac is as relevant, even though I don't use Mac myself for many years. You're going to be in organizations where you're going to have to apply possibly CIS benchmarks that, you know, are on the Mac stations and everything like that. But yeah, networking definitely, as well as basic IT knowledge. So my advice to anyone that wants to go into cybersecurity, always spend at least 1 to 3 years before you actually break into cybersecurity in an IT role. Get your feet wet in the IT field, because the honest truth is, and I'm seeing this as well, because I'm trying to look at the different stuff around the market, and, you know, possibly look at better opportunities for jobs. And all the jobs I've looked at, they are still like, they specifically call out they want to have some IT experience in those roles, even at the more junior levels, which I'm not junior by any means. I'm looking to break into a senior role or an architecture role, but yeah, there's just been some issues where I work that I feel like I'm not going to be able to grow in my career, and I'm ready to do some more things in my career to level up. Yeah, the same shirt. Yeah, it's a good shirt. The thing about tech and cyber, well, tech vendors in general, they always have good quality, comfy shirts, which, you know, makes you want to wear them even more. And of course, when they have a good design, it's really cool too. I picked up like 5 shirts just at this recent one-day cyber event I went to. How to Google stuff the right way. Well, yes, Google Foo is definitely something that you should learn. And speaking of Google Foo, if you want to get some Google Foo merchandise, feel free to pop over to shop.chiefgeek3d.com, and you can pick up some Google Foo stickers, Google Foo desk mats, I can't work, mugs, and, you know, all t-shirts, all that. We have the Google Foo. We'll get some other merch out there as well in due time. But yeah, I got that shirt when Corelight gave me a tour of the SOC at BH 2024. Yeah, they were one of the vendors at where I was at, and they had a little CTF. Wasn't the best CTF. They had some issues in there, and they didn't word things right. But yeah, yeah. Should I learn to code in cybersecurity? I wouldn't say coding per se, but scripting. Understand Python, Bash, and PowerShell, and that will be most of what you actually end up using in cybersecurity. It would not hurt to know how to terraform things, whether it be with Terraform or OpenTofu. If you're just doing it individually right now, they're about the same, but I know a lot of organizations are moving to OpenTofu from Terraform because of the licensing issues they have as of recent. But the syntax and everything is pretty much parity right now between OpenTofu and Terraform. So understand that, and cloud infrastructures. There's a lot of people that use AWS, and then, you know, I've seen some people using Google Cloud as well as Azure. But yeah, you'll want to know terraforming in general, especially as people are moving more towards infrastructure as code, because a lot of organizations are starting to lock down their cloud instances where you cannot go manually into the dashboard and start creating assets and everything. You have to terraform it in, and there's CI/CD pipelines powering a lot of that through different ways. Like, I know where I'm at, we're using Spacelift, which is another thing you can actually look at and start learning how to deploy things using GitHub as, you know, the engine for that, or GitLab, at really no cost. Spacelift actually allows a free license for up to 2 users, and you can even set that up with an OICD connection to your identity provider. So if you want to SSO that, single sign on it, you can. There's a lot of tools out there that you can use, low cost, no cost, to shore up your home lab to get you some enterprise knowledge. I know that's what I need to get into as well. I eventually do plan to set up my Spacelift and then shore up my snick.io so that I have the security backend for my code once I get back to improving some of my automations. I'm kind of stretched thin on my backlog of projects, but my ADHD meds are finally letting me power through, so eventually I'll get back to my few Python projects, and I do want to Dockerize my Twitch automation to go to Mastodon, as well as add the Blue Sky capability, but Blue Sky I'm waiting for OAuth features to be enabled, because I don't want to recode that whole thing, and I've been waiting for OAuth for a while. And those little projects actually, that one little project actually has helped me land a job, because I literally showcased, yeah, I built this out. And then what I want to do is not only Dockerize it, but turn it into a Lambda function so I can showcase in a public repository, yeah, I can automate this. And then I want to also, I have to re-release the Domain Assassin automation that I have, but I have to refactor a bunch of code and all that, because there's a similar version that I was using at work, and I gotta strip out a bunch of stuff to make it my own thing and put it under GPL so that way people can use it. But yeah, have you seen that there is a way to download the entire Wikipedia and have it offline? Yeah, they've been talking about that for several years. This is nothing really new. It's just something that's actually been becoming more mainstream knowledge that people are able to do this. But it's been something that's been talked about for a little less than a decade at this point now. What do I need to learn about Python language? Any specific library or something? Just how to script things together. That's really the main thing. It's not, don't worry about learning certain libraries, because the reality is what libraries you use will change over time. And a lot of employers right now aren't really so up and up on, like, you know, having to manually code stuff. A lot of them are actually expecting you to use LLMs, AI, as people colloquially call them, as part of your workflow. Believe it or not, they're expecting you to do that a lot and understand how to securely code as well. But the better thing is to at least know the concepts of how to operate your code and how to do it securely, like how to modularize it, how to make sure you're not hard coding in variables, use secret managers to pull that data in. So another thing you can do is you can actually learn Doppler, which I've worked with in the past, just some transparency there, but it is a great platform. They have a free version, and that's a good secrets manager that you can actually use to plug in, so you don't hard code things in. Instead, you put them in Doppler Secrets Manager, because when you go to places for work, they're going to use like AWS Secrets Manager, Google Passwords, whatever, things like that, to pull the secrets in a secure manner so that you don't have it hard-coded in the code. And the advantage of that as well is you don't have to modify the code if the API key or whatever changes. You just change the secret inside of the secret manager, and then it will change in on the next run when it calls upon things. So, yeah. Every time I use GPT or Gemini, it's taking longer and I don't learn anything, so I don't do it anymore. Well, you don't really use it to learn per se. You use it to assist along, and you learn a lot of the concepts outside of just LLMs and stuff like that. Like a lot of the things I've learned to optimize code as well as secure it and all that didn't come from having LLMs use it. Like it came from working with people that knew how to code and taught me a lot of the concepts around it, and just thinking about it critically, like what should I do to have it secured and lock different versions down and have the code analyzed and the CI/CD. Because here's the thing, whenever you have like ChatGPT, Gemini, any of the Claude, any of those make code, it'll often make code that'll run and do the thing you want, but it's not going to be the way you want it to run. Like it's going to be full of security issues. Like you've heard a lot of people having issues with security in relation to developers just vibe coding things because they're coding it to have the result that they're wanting to look for, but they're not looking at how it's getting there. Yeah, local web servers for things. For what? I have a Pi 02W laying around here. What could I do as a little project? Yeah, like Balloon was saying for that. I think that's what they were talking about. Local web servers. There's a lot of different projects out there, especially with the Raspberry Pi. Just look up different projects. You could run like a little WordPress server. Those things are actually surprisingly powerful for how tiny they are. I got some Pi Zeros around here somewhere as well. But they... you can do quite a bit with them, at least. I mean, you can't do a whole lot with them because the Pi Zero is still kind of limited to, like, say, running your own, like, SIM or Grafana interface or stuff like that, but you can do a lot with it. When setting up a node on Tor, should I connect my computer using LAN cable instead of wireless? Yeah, ideally you want to always do things that you're actually hosting with a wire. Let me put it this way. Whenever it is possible and feasible, always run things over a wire. Even gaming. Now, understandably, you're not always going to be able to run a wire wherever you're at. You may not have it, architected or, built out in your house or whatever to be able to do that. But whenever you're talking about things that need to have a reliable and performant connection to lower latency as well, you're going to want to make sure it's running over a wire. Even these desktops here, they have wireless capabilities, but they're hardwired. My ham radio computer over there has a hardwire connection too. Now, granted, I dropped Ethernet ports all over the house, so I pretty much can hardwire most things. But even very often when I'm running things on my laptops, I have these Ethernet cables here to, run my things locally using a hardwire connection when I'm using a laptop or Raspberry Pi programming, stuff like that, just because it does make a world of difference. What's your favorite Metallica song? I'm going to be basic and say Enter Sandman. I did see them live a few months ago, though. That was pretty fun. Yeah, I wanted to make a local file sharing server. I really need to finish it. You can do Nextcloud, but it's kind of heavy for just a file server. It is an option, though. There was something a few people were talking about in the Discord server. I can't remember what the project was. One person was sharing. It was an interesting project for like lightweight file sharing across the network, which, shameless plug. If you haven't already, join the Discord and Matrix servers. The links are in the bio for all of you. You are more than welcome to join. Nice little community, a little over 1,000 people in there. I use LAN to connect as it has less latency than wireless. You mean you use a wired connection on LAN? So that's one thing, not trying to be nitpicky or that guy, but let's be clear here. Wireless and wired connections both can be done over LAN. So saying it's on a LAN connection to refer to wired isn't really the correct thing. Just in the same way that you shouldn't refer to your internet as Wi-Fi. So I'm just trying to, give a little bit of professional advice here, because I know a lot of people are looking, get into it as a career. These little things matter when you are professionally in the job, because you're going to be dealing with coworkers that are, going to be on the networking team or such, and you need to be able to speak the same language. And you're going to also have to educate a lot of end users as well when you're troubleshooting problems. Because a lot of times, like, say, we use Zscaler at work. All right? And they will straight up say, the Wi-Fi at my house is not working well and Zscaler's dropping out. And then we have to do a little troubleshooting. Well, they have to do troubleshooting because it's their home network. And we basically have to say, does the connectivity have problems when you're in the office still? Or is it just at your home? Great. Can you hardwire the connection and still see how it's going? And then, work back from there. But you can't really do too much to help, end users that it's their home connection. The most you could say is lead them down that route, and then they're going to have to do troubleshooting on their own end. But yeah. I'm actually co-workers. Well, here's the reality. We're all actually in the field here, and it's going to make a world of difference when you're dealing with a networking issue and you're actually telling people it's the Wi-Fi versus a, whatever connection. Because if you say it's the Wi-Fi, networking is going to start looking at the access points. But if you say it's an overall connectivity issue and you happen to be hardwired at your desk, that's going to make a whole different path for diagnostics. So, there's a difference between being that guy on the, the internet, and just saying actually, what you're not using is, the Linux system. You're using the GNU/Linux system. Trust me, I have seen it where it's literally wasted the entire networking team hours because they were given the wrong terminology by another coworker. And you will get chewed out for wasting people's time. You just want to watch them reset the switches for no reason? Yeah, and when you feed them wrong information, you're the one that gets in trouble. I've seen it happen. You do not want to be that guy. So it's better to give you the right information, to tell them the right information when the issues happen, because those are rookie mistakes. And when you're troubleshooting downtime issues with, say, and this has happened, we've had high-level C-suite executives have issues, and a newbie gave the wrong terminology. And that C-suite executive couldn't hop on a important meeting. Guess who got in trouble? Do you learn via reading tech books like O'Reilly, No Starch, or some other? Not really. I do it more from hands-on tinkering and stuff. Not to say that they're bad, but the reality is, by the time a lot of that stuff is actually in a written book, as I've said before, it ends up being a few years behind. A lot of the things that they talk about in the books happen to already be known in the field by several years, and you can pick it up by piecing together different knowledge. Like, everyone is now on the hype about model context protocols, which we'll be watching a video about later, but I was hearing and looking into that for a few years already, and agentic AI and things like that, and yeah. I need to drop it here due to being part of the agreement that came with my OS. I use Arch BTW. Yes, you use Arch, and I touch grass. We are not alike. I'm kidding. It's always a network issue, even in security. Well, I consider networking as a security issue. The reason why is cybersecurity is about the CIA triad: the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And if your availability is impacted, that's usually a networking issue. Usually. I use Arch BTW and program in Rust. What topic for cybersecurity should I choose in a bachelor thesis? I don't know. There's a lot out there. It's up to what you feel like you can write, because you're talking to a guy that didn't get a college degree for this stuff. I've been in the field a little bit too long that I think at this point in my life, me going back to college, it'd just be a waste of time and money for me, because I already have the CISSP and a lot of the relevant knowledge people would want. Does the green from PCBs count as touching grass? No, it does not. Okay, so there's a few things that, some people wanted to have me look at on stream from my mods in the community. So let's take a look at this. So, getting a Microsoft 365 ad on Twitch. The tracking is not working. Well, I use Microsoft 365. As much as many of y'all hate on, God damn it. Wired is making me have to do the whole thing where it's like, you've read your last free article. Does this workaround work? Ha-ha! Okay. So, this is the article one of my followers wanted me to look at. Brendan Carr isn't going to stop until someone makes him. This is in relation to the Jimmy Kimmel suspension, because he's the FCC commissioner. And I will be honest, I have issues with him, not just on the Jimmy Kimmel issue, but there's been a lot of issues with how the FCC is treating the spectrum sales of various spectrums that we use, not just in ham radio, but there's also some potential threats to 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi because of the way they're selling parts of the spectrum. We already shut down the attempts for them to hit, what was it, the 70 centimeter band, I believe it was. Or was it the 2 meter band? I think it was. We were talking about it last stream. I think it was it 2 meter? I can't remember. It was either 2 meter or 70 centimeter band. I think it was the 400 megahertz spectrum. Don't go to a normal high school if you're over 30. You will realize how much slower you gotta learn and not understand new things compared to the young people. It's depressing. Wait, what? Do they really learn that much slower? I don't know. Alright, so let's see. In the wake of Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, experts say the FCC commissioner's conduct is flatly unconstitutional. I agree with that. They also expect him to keep going. I agree with that as well, because the problem is that a lot of, companies out there are capitulating because they're worried that their FCC licenses may be challenged by, CAR, which is a complete violation of the First Amendment and the entire, idea that the founders had of the freedom of press being a check on government. I mean, you're already seeing it from the DoD with what's-its-face, Hegseth, trying to, require press to have some kind of agreement to only report the content as they say, even when things are questionable. But anyway, in what has become an all-too regular display from Brendan Carr, the Federal Communications Chairman, used the podcast appearance Wednesday to flex his regulatory power. In this instance, he threatened actions against broadcasters that refused to punish Jimmy Kimmel for remarks he made on his ABC show Monday night. And that is a complete violation of the First Amendment because he has not done anything that actually would have warranted this, whether you agree with him or not. And honestly, when I looked at his comments, I'm like, that's what you have issues with? His little joke about the Trump administration? My God. I have more issues with Jimmy Kimmel making dad jokes for multiple decades than I do with him making that joke. Proton Mail is putting my full name that I never gave them into the to field while receiving a mail. You probably put it in at some point, and you can modify that, just so you know. You'll have to look in the settings. So he says we can do this the easy way or the hard way, Carr said on former Turning Point USA contributor Benny Johnson's podcast on Wednesday. These companies can find ways to change conduct to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. That's not the FCC's job to police the airwaves for constitutionally protected speech. Even I have issues, by the way, with the FCC regulating curse words and stuff on the air to the way they do. I mean, if you go over to Europe, by the way, you'll find they can actually curse on TV, especially after hours. I know it's been loosened over the years, but I still have issues with certain things about that. But it's not the FCC's job to police people for their jokes, especially for a joke that Jimmy Kimmel had, which was far lighter than South Park has ever done. Not that I'm particularly a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I find his humor borders on dad jokes a little bit too much, basically. And I'm not a dad. I feel like once you actually happen to have a crotch goblin, your sense of humor apparently changes, but I digress. Since taking over the FCC at the beginning of the year, Carr has tested how far the agency can limit speech without ever quite formally censoring it. By leveraging his position as chairman, he has relied on informal threats and regulatory incentives to keep broadcasters in line with the Trump administration's politics, and experts say Carr won't end this campaign until someone stops him. For now, it's not clear who's even willing to try. Yeah, and that's my issue, is everyone's capitulating a little bit too easily now to the issues when it could be very clear. You bring it up, it's a First Amendment violation to be doing the things that he's doing and threatening the things that he's threatening. Yeah, he'll push it until he's stopped. Congress has been silent on this, and there hasn't been a basis to get to court. Former FCC Chair Tom Wheeler tells Wired he's been very artful in not making formal decisions that are appealable to the court, but instead having these informal coercive activities that are not appealable, and so until Congress or the courts say he can't, he'll keep pushing. And that's why I think they should just go ahead and not capitulate early, because that's the problem. You don't appease a tyrant, you stand up to them. It's just like a bully on the playground. You give in to a bully on the playground just because they come over and they, push you around a little bit. They're going to keep doing it. You stand up to them, they usually back down. We have corn ads after 2300. Oh, really? Jimmy shouldn't do politics. He should do a comedy talk show. Well, here's the thing you need to understand. A lot of comedy is politics. If you think I'm wrong, go look at the comedy bits over the years. Some of the most famous comedians got into political issues. Like, God damn it, what was his name? Oh. Shoot. He was, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He was such a, great comedian. This is gonna bug me. Hold on. I think it was George Carlin. Yeah, George Carlin. George Carlin. Most of his bits were literally about politics. And he's one of the best comedians ever. And here's the reality. Comedy throughout the ages has always been, well, primarily been about sticking it to the man. So saying that a comedian should only stick to a talk show or comedy has you really showing how ignorant you are of what comedy has been throughout the ages. And this isn't even a recent revelation of like, well, George Carlin was the 1980s and it was really recent. No, go back. Lucille Ball, a lot of these different people from the many different years, they did politics and in their bits. Now, of course, it was a little bit more sanitized back then, but comedy was still part of, the political discourse. In fact, comedy is usually how a lot of people got to discuss politics over the years. So, Dave Chappelle didn't do politics. Oh, you are definitely wrong there! Oh, you are definitely wrong! You have never seen his stand-up if you think that. He has definitely waded in political issues. And the Chappelle Show? Come on! He literally was riffing on Bush and a few others. Dave Chappelle was totally riffing on politics. South Park. Most of their comedic bits have to do with politics. Family Guy, a lot of it has to do with politics. Even Futurama has waded into politics. Don't tell me that Dave Chappelle didn't do You definitely didn't see the Chappelle show or his stand-up to see that he has waded into that. Even Eddie Murphy has over the years. Trust me. A lot of comedians wade into politics because there's a lot of material there in various different aspects. But anyway, over the past 8 months, Carr, a formerly light touch telecom regulator turned MAGA hardliner, has shown how far he's willing to take the crusade. He has threatened to revoke broadcast licenses for outlets the administration sees as distorting news content. Targeting Comcast outlets over news coverage of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation in April, he opened investigations into NPR and PBS underwriting announcements, alleging that they crossed into commercial advertising. Carr oversaw the merger between Paramount and Skydance and extracted concessions on CBS's editorial work, pressuring the company to do away with its DEI policies and promise viewpoint diversity in coverage. David Ellison, son of billionaire Trump supporter Larry Ellison, founded Skydance and became Paramount's chair and chief executive officer following the merger. Yeah, that doesn't pass the smell test. At the same time, Donald Trump was suing CBS for having edited a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. After Paramount paid out $60 million to settle the suit, CBS said it would end Stephen Colbert's show next spring. The FCC under Brendan Carr uses mergers and business interests of media companies as leverage to extract concessions, extract bribes, and extract censorship, says Seth Stern, director of advocacy at the Freedom of the Press Foundation. Carr did not immediately respond to a request for comment. While Carr's threats have chased social media companies and cable networks, they've hit companies with business before the FCC the hardest. Nexstar, which owns dozens of ABC affiliate networks, was one of the companies to pull Jimmy Kimmel Live just hours after Carr's Wednesday threat. The company is currently seeking approval from the FCC for a $6.2 billion deal to buy Tegna, which owns networks in major networks including Austin, Texas, and San Diego, California. Sinclair, another major broadcasting company, also relies on the FCC to periodically renew its licenses and allocate the company's spectrum. Yeah, maybe Jimmy was a moderator between political powers and businesses. What, Jimmy Fallon? Yeah, trust me. Look into every single comedian out there. They've waded in political jokes here and there. A comedian, primarily their job is to bring humorous points, yes, but how do they often do that? By taking material of the modern day. And a lot of what happens in the modern day happens to be around politics. In Germany, we have really good political comedy from public broadcasting. Huh. I haven't really paid too much to the German TV even when I lived in Germany. But I did enjoy Germany. To Genevieve Lecquier, a professor of law at University of Chicago, whose research focuses on free speech, Carr's threats against ABC appear to be a pretty clear-cut case of jawboning. Jawboning refers to a type of informal coercion where government officials try to pressure private entities into suppressing or changing speech without using any actual formal legal action. Since jawboning is typically done in letters and private meetings, it rarely leaves a paper trail, making it notoriously difficult to challenge in court. This Kimmel suspension is a little different, Lakier says. During the podcast appearance, Carr explicitly named his target, threatened regulatory action, and within a matter of hours, the companies complied. The Supreme Court has made clear that that's unconstitutional in all circumstances, says Lakier. You're just not allowed to do that. There's no balancing. There's no justification. Absolutely no way the government can do that. Even if Carr's threats amount to unconstitutional jawboning, though, stopping him could still prove difficult. If ABC sued, it would need to prove coercion, and however a suit went, filing one could risk additional regulatory retaliation down the line. If Kimmel were to sue, there's no promise that he would get anything out of the suit, even if he won, says Lakier, making it less likely for him to pursue legal action in the first place. There's not much there for him to establish that his rights were violated, but there is a lot of benefit for everyone else, says Lakeyear. This has received so much attention that it would be good if there could be, from now on, some mechanism for more oversight from the courts over what Carr is doing. Organizations like the Freedom of Press Foundation have sought novel means of limiting Carr's power. In July, the FPF submitted a formal disciplinary complaint to the D.C. Bar's Office of Disciplinary Counsel, arguing that Carr violated its ethical rules, misrepresenting the law by suggesting the FCC has the ability to regulate editorial viewpoints. Without formal rulings, companies affected by Carr's threats would be some of the only organizations with grounding to sue. At the same time, they have to be some of the least likely groups to pursue legal action over the last 8 months. Yeah. So basically, it's just reiterating through the rest of this, basically, what I've been saying for a while, that this is still problematic. That's some really good font. Well, so what I did was, for some reason, Wired has this, like, paywall here, and it's like your last free article. Well, what they didn't count on is if you disable JavaScript and you just pull it up through, like, a browser like W3N, you can read the browser. Ha-ha! But, yeah. Basically, it's going to suck for the next few years, not just from a freedom of speech point of view, but the ham radio people are very upset with the way the Trump administration is allocating the spectrum and kowtowing to try to sell more of the spectrum. They removed the protections around the 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi and the big beautiful bill as they talked around, so there is a chance that you can get interference on 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi if they start selling chunks of that spectrum off for commercial purposes. Can you explain the basics of W3M real quick? It's just a web browser that works in terminal. So, like, here, I'll, W3M, let's see, wire.com. So all it is just a regular browser in over there. So I can actually just browse the internet using this. Now, it doesn't work with everything, but you can, you know, start reading. As you can see, I can pull through different links in here. So, right over here, about the NPM worm that was going through. And then, you know, you can just browse around. It's just a web browser that works in terminal. The Wikipedia search is just landing on a blank page. Oh. Yeah, you can't see my screen. But yeah, like I was saying, so you can just load up any website, and then you can just start browsing through it. So as you can see, I'm just pulling it up. And I can even, like, so, like, okay, we're going through here. There's another article over here. So you can literally just browse through just like you can anything else. Now, of course, there are limitations because, some sites do require, like, JavaScript and all that, but let's say, let's go to Wikipedia. Let's just search Linux through Wikipedia. Sometimes a lot of websites are not really built for this kind of thing. So, like I was saying, you know, like, I use it generally to go directly to a page I know that needs to be, here we go. Maybe. No. But yeah, W3M Lynx is another one. LYNX, Lima Yankee November X-Ray. That's another one that people use to do browsing through the terminal. Although less and less sites are going to be able to be browsable through the terminal. Now let's get another article over here that some of my community wanted me to look at through the Discord channel. It's a little bit older, but I think we discussed part of this a little bit a while ago. A dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. Initiative aimed at boosting Democrats' online influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. $8,000 a month? Man, I wish I was getting $8K a month for my content. That'd be nice. That'd be close to the point when I can actually, you know, think about leaving, my day job. Okay, so got that Graphene OS boss, man. It's nice. Yeah, Graphene is nice. I like it. Okay, so in a private group chat in June, dozens of Democratic political influencers discussed whether to take advantage of an enticing opportunity. They were being offered $8,000 per month to take part in a secretive program aimed at bolstering Democratic messaging on the internet. But the contract sent to them from Chorus, the nonprofit arm of a liberal influencer marketing platform, came with some strings. Among other issues, it mandated extensive secrecy about disclosing their payments and had restrictions on what sort of political content the creators could produce. Boo! In their group chat, influencers debated the details. Should we send a joint email with all of our email addresses, or are we just going to send things separately and hope that they change everything for everyone? Lorenzo, a non-binary creator in Columbus, Ohio, with over 864,000 TikTok followers, asked the group. Some joked about collective bargaining. Any Newsies fans here? Eliza Orland's a public defender and reality TV star known for her appearances on Survivor. Interesting. Posted in the group, we're a union just by saying so. Yeah. The influencers in the chat collectively had at least 13 million followers across social platforms. They represented some of the most well-known voices on online posting in support of Democrats, and they're key to wherever the party moves next, but ultimately the group didn't make much progress. Reading through this revised Chorus contract like, you win some, you lose some, a reproductive justice influencer named Perry, who posts under the handle Women in America, responded later in the thread, I also think there's at least 4 other things that should change. But the vibe I got from their email was that there would be minimal, if any, changes. Lorenzo, Orleans, and Pari did not reply to requests for comment. I don't feel strongly... So how did they get a hold of this group chat? That's the thing I'm curious about. Was this another Pete Hegseth kind of issue where they added a journalist to the chat? Like, that's the thing I don't understand, how this got revealed. My banking authenticator would not work under Graphene anymore. Interesting. See, my bank uses straight-up multi-factor authentication that I actually use my YubiKey to generate the TOTP. So it's just standard TOTP. You know, like banks and all apps should be doing. Looking at you, Steam, and your stupid Steam authenticator thing. I don't feel strongly about pushing, to be honest. Our Aaron Parnas, a Gen Z news influencer. Yeah, I know he is. That's probably the first person I've read through this entire article that I actually know who they are. A Gen Z news influencer has been called the Gen Z Walter Cronkite. I would not call him that. And has been lauded in legacy media outlets posted to the chat. They aren't going to modify it anymore. Seems like a take it or leave it. Parnas declined to comment. Geez, everyone's declining to comment. I believe we are in stage 5 acceptance, Perry responded. Creators began signing on to the deal. For years, Democrats have struggled to work with influencers. In 2024, President Joe Biden's White House snubbed several prominent content creators after they lightly criticized the administration over its policies on climate change, COVID, Gaza, and the TikTok ban. Content creators who challenged Kamala Harris, including Hassan Piker, a well-known influencer on the left, were similarly unwelcome at campaign events. Well, I'm just gonna say it. There's probably a lot more to it because there's a lot of people that are distancing themselves from Hassan Piker. Okay? It's like, he's made some really controversial statements that would make even a lot of people that lean towards the left say, I'm not comfortable with this. That's been going on for a while. It's a German bank. I need to call most times I send an email because they don't read it. It's a really big bank. Interesting. You send mail to your bank? I just go to the lobby and pull a Karen move. For years, Democrats... Okay, we got that. After the Democrats lost in November, they faced a reckoning. It was clear that the party had failed to successfully navigate the new media landscape, while Republicans spent decades building a powerful and robust independent unit. Yeah, this is basically going into, like, things I've talked about for a while, where a lot of the Democrat Party is so out of touch with the people in the mainstream, not just in terms of the new media, but also the feelings of people on the ground. Like I've said for many years, even though I'm by no means a Republican nor a Democrat, I said Democrats shot themselves in the foot back in 2016 by endorsing Hillary Clinton and using the superdelegates to shut Bernie Sanders out. And I said if Bernie Sanders had actually been given the support that he actually was winning, instead of shut out by elitists on there, we wouldn't have the Donald Trump problem today. But I digress. Yeah, so this is basically going into, they raised about $8,000. This article's pretty long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But yeah, they were like, I know like there was a few creators, I think like, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Taylor Lorenz was even called out for getting like $8,000 a month from this organization, amongst others. And I think this is a tone-deaf approach to get creators to put content you want out there. Because if you say that you only want them to talk about politics in a certain way, I will tell you straight up, I'm not going to take that money. Because you're telling me that I have a muzzle on my mouth to talk about how the, Democrats are screwing over everyday people in terms of privacy and technology rights, and keep me from, say, hammering on the fact that Democrats have effed us just as much as Republicans on privacy regulation, internet freedoms, and all these other things by capitulating in many different ways or not fighting for the freedoms that we have. I would not want to sell my soul for $8,000 a month. Don't get me wrong. It's a good amount of money. I can see why a lot of people would want to take it, but my soul's worth a little bit more than $8,000 a month. You could send a fax. And that's always an option. But yeah, that whole, influence, I really think if Democrats wanted to actually win elections, and this is my unbiased take, I'm just looking at it from my point of view as a content creator and a cybersecurity professional, and someone that dabbled in independent journalism in the past, a little bit here and there. Nothing much, nothing major, but, just like a lot of people dabbled in college and stuff like that. I would tell them to fire whoever they have running their media and, the way they're trying to do outreach and everything. Bring in someone that actually has a background in this. Not mainstream media. Let me make that clear. You do not want someone from the mainstream media. Bring someone that's between Gen Z and Millennial, between those two generations, that has a decent understanding of social media and the ways that it's going, and can connect with them. Because I remember I was reading an article separate from this, something about how Democrats were trying to spin up an initiative to get men back to voting Democrat because they were losing young men. And if you looked at, who they had picked for it, I'm like, this was definitely an out-of-touch pick. Because I'm going to tell you this straight up. I forget what her name was or anything like that. And no hate to her whatsoever. But I looked into her background and I'm like, how are you going to connect with young men and know what young men are facing in terms of issues for the Democrats to win them back over? That's why Republicans are winning over more young men, because they're able to connect with them, even though a lot of the things they get them to vote for may be against their own interests. And it's the problem of, like, Republicans are a lot better at messaging, I hate to say it, than Democrats have been for many years. And Democrats keep shooting themselves in the foot, and they have for a while. That's my 2 cents on that subject. Oy. Alright, what the hell did Red Fang send me? Okay, Vampire, if you are on stream, this... Hold on. Let me see what this is. If I can get this over. Okay, so one of my mods wanted me to look at that. Same here in Germany with the far-right AfD. Yeah. Like, by no means do I agree with AfD. I mean, that should be pretty obvious if you know my background. But I do have to say they are very good at messaging. It's no different than the other funny mustache aficionados. Bought the Framework 16 and I want to start Linux, but I might dual boot with Windows for school. Never used Linux. Which one do you recommend? I personally use Pop! OS. Some people like Linux Mint. My advice would be play around with a few in a virtual machine on Windows. I would recommend getting Windows Professional version, just so you know, because you can use Hyper-V, which is a little bit better hypervisor. There's a little bit more setup that involves with it, but it's a lot more performant, but you can at least use VirtualBox to play around. I would say play around with like Pop! OS, Linux Mint, Zorin, Fedora, and a few others. See which one you vibe with. I personally use Pop! OS. I also use Debian, and CubesOS. Do not touch CubesOS if you are new to Linux. That is more of a intermediate to advanced one I would only recommend checking out once you are comfortable with Linux. And for the love of God, if you're going to try going around the ethical hacking side of things, don't just jump into Kali. Parrot OS is better for that. But yeah. You need to use iPad OS for school? Ew.
Brother, What's
that? What's that, brother?
What's that, brother?
Okay. So what is this that Vampire, one of my mods, sent me to see? I want that t-shirt! I want that t-shirt! Oh, I want that t-shirt. How much is real hiring a hacker on the dark web? I don't have a sound effect on here that I was gonna use. Nope, but I'm gonna give you some advice. Most of those hacker for hire services are BS. And I'm gonna make this very clear. If you think of going out to hire someone to do things for you and all that, it's very illegal to go messing with people's networks you don't have permission for. And it can go very wrong. I know of a company that actually I worked for that was dumb enough to try to hire someone off the darknet. And it took them several months to remediate it, and that was before they had hired me. And why didn't they hire a proper, cyber guy? Because, well, it looked cheaper on paper, but it ended up costing, like, tons and tons of money because of the breach that they had and everything. Yeah, most are scams, most are honeypots, and Yeah, the darknet's not as scary as people think, but yeah, most of those people that are going out to, like, say, well, I'm a hacker for hire and all that. No, you're not. And the ones that are usually aren't doing it for money per se. And if they are doing it for money, they're doing it by compromising other companies by using ransomware and stuff like that. Like, Alf V and a few others. Or they're getting paid by the state to do things for different countries. To the topic of honeypots, was ist this? Alright, hold on. I'm gonna see what you just sent. Does Vivaldi work well on Pop? I mean, it can, but why would you want to run Vivaldi on Linux? I mean, I don't care for Vivaldi. Well, mostly I don't care for them because not open source. I hear good things about it, but just no. Alright, let's see. Trying to type in this website you gave me. Because I didn't enable the clipboard on here. Hold on. How do I turn on the clipboard in this? Yeah, I'll look at that later. Alright. Start. Main. And. Wait, is this... Why does it have a T-Mobile logo on it? It's a telecom overview from a lot of their honeypots and what attacks the monitor. Oh! I'll have to share that at work. I didn't know what this was, so I was like, I haven't used the site, so I opened it up in a VM. Okay. Here, I'll show it to everyone else. I just wanted to inspect it before I, like, started opening it up. Is it possible to use zero-click or state-level spywares by hackers or brokers on the dark web? I think you're mixing up terms here and not understanding what you're asking. Which one do I recommend? I use Firefox. Getting into privacy, I got a Pixel 7 running Graphene OS, so I was wondering what browsers to use. Just use the one that comes with Graphene OS out the box. Vanadium's a pretty solid browser. And if you don't want that, Firefox is fine. I have a Graphene OS phone too. But is it possible to use zero-click or state-level spywares? Yeah. Again, going back to that, I think you're mixing up terms without understanding what they are. Because if you're talking about state-level, that's not usually public. And if you're worried about being state-level, yeah, you got bigger problems. Okay, so this is from the telecom, their honeypots of attacks. That's kind of interesting. I take it this is... Yep, I thought that was going to be a map that was going to pop up and load in a second. Maybe it just doesn't like my dark mode. Yeah, it didn't like dark mode on this page. That's interesting. You can actually see in real time... Ooh, you can even, like, monitor, like, the attacks are going on in the US. Interesting. Ooh. Thank you for sharing this. Deutsche Telekom. Oh, it's from T-Mobile. Interesting. And they got a GitHub. Well, now I gotta poke at that. This is what one of the members in chat over on Twitch shared with me, which is the honeypots that Deutsche Telekom apparently has, so you can see the attacks going on their honeypots. Ooh, you can even see like the usernames and passwords they're trying to throw on it, or just like what ports they're hitting. This is cool. Hold on, I'm just checking this out. Wait, they got MISP warning lists? Wait, they got... You can actually use this stuff for MISP. That's nice. If you can't tell, I like going down rabbit holes when I get these little things and see what they're about. And then I think... Yeah, so the About Us... Telecom Security... Telecom Security makes Teapot the core of the Honeypot project, available to the public, and encourages collaboration between... Interesting. You see Proton is moving some of itself to Norway. Yeah, I saw that. That's probably been something they were planning for a while. Switzerland, unfortunately, is not quite the safe haven they once used to be. Is this the actual project we were talking about? I'm gonna have to dig into this. Oh wait, no. This is it. Teapot Mobile. Create yours to all files for 3D printing included. What files? These must be some high-res pictures if it's slow loading like this. Wait. You can run this? On a Raspberry Pi? Oh. That's nice. Oh, I'm gonna have to dig into this, definitely. Oh, so they actually have like 3D printed files, so you can actually make this as an entire system with the dashboard and all that. Ooh, nice. So let's see. The idea for Teapot started a couple years back when Teapot started to support the ARM64 architecture. Raspberry Pi hardware's come to buy reasonable. Took a little longer than anticipated. Started as a one-day-a-month project at work. It fastly turned into a weekend evening project. Winter was coming, and the first version was done in December 2023. While already being an eye-catcher, the display was not bright enough. The resistive touch panel and the resolution did limit the possibilities. Blah 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 blah. Huh. Well, now I want to build this. Okay, so 3D printing stuff, cron jobs, all that. So, what I'm curious about... Okay, so it does use an LTE. So I'd want to get an LTE stick. Well, specifically they're saying... Telecom in Germany, so I'd have to figure out how to do this with an American ISP. I wonder if I could just run it on T-Mobile out here, because I have one of those cards amongst the several companies that I try out. Well, technically it's Mint Mobile, but yeah. What is Teapot? It's a, honeypot. Apparently this is it. Live. So you can actually, like, get an idea of where attacks are coming and going. And if you don't know what a honeypot is, essentially, and we do this at work too, you deploy fake assets and have them attack that. So then what you can do is collect all that data on your attackers and then import that data ideally into your actual systems. So you actually can, like for example, at work, we have fake stuff deployed that if you start hitting these things, we then start collecting your information and then can port that in to CrowdStrike automatically to set up indicators of attack to automatically block IP addresses, whatever it's coming out of. And then let's say you do happen to hit like a user with their actual credentials and they happen to be the real credentials with it. You can then set up an automation to then like call upon Active Directory or Okta or whatever to then force that user to reset their password because it was used in a known good state on a vulnerable asset and the hash is matched up. Yeah, honeypots are definitely fun. Well, theirs are definitely interesting. I want to play with it. Remember seeing videos that Firefox was ruining their reputation with some update or something? It was overplayed. So the problem was you had a lot of people that don't understand the difference between regulatory compliance when it comes to the legalese of things, and they just jumped into craziness about it. And if you're really that curious about it, I went into a deep dive on it on a YouTube video. I did have TikTok videos about it, but TikTok is notoriously bad to, you know, reference old videos. So you can go to my channel. Hold on, I'll pull it up. I got some more videos I gotta record and everything. I've just been so busy. I got a few that are planned to be released, but I also have to re-record a couple. There we go. Is Mozilla Firefox selling your data? Let's break it down. So that video goes into it. The long and short of it, no, people are jumping into it and don't understand how legal documents are and privacy policies and end user agreements are, and then the complication of how different regulatory environments, different states, different countries define selling data as different things. So like, for example, they have to cater to the California Consumer Privacy Act, and the CCPA defines selling data as a transaction, and it doesn't even require a monetary transaction for said data. So merely just handing that data off to another party for processing, whether it's, you know, a violation of, you know, their privacy or not, you know, it could just be like in the case of Mozilla uses oblivious HTTP and stuff so that they can actually collect data in aggregate and anonymize that data to be able to make money, because all these projects require money. Even by doing that and anonymizing the data, that's considered selling the data. But even if they hand over the data just to process the telemetry of it to get better understanding of it, that could be considered selling the data, even though there is no monetary transaction going on with said data. And that's the problem where you have a lot of these legalese that don't line up with what the average person understands as a sale. A sale of data to you and me means, well, I give you this, you give me money. But certain regulatory environments, that's not the case. So they have to make a privacy policy and an end user license agreement that caters to the different regions' definitions of what a sale constitutes, even though that doesn't make sense to you or I. My devices are spying on me and I never clicked on anything. I don't know what to do. Well, hate to break it to you, all your devices are spying on you whether you like it or not. I mean, you're on social media sites that are basically gathering all your data to spy on you. You're, using probably non-free browsers that are usually collecting your data to sell ads to you in the worst way. The best thing you can do is, as best as you can, it's not how you access the internet that is of issue. It's what you access. So let me make this very clear what I mean by that. A lot of people have the misconception of, well, if I go on Tor, if I go on a VPN and then I connect to the site, I'm private. Not necessarily. If you get on these, if you're using a VPN, not all VPNs, by the way, are really that private. Some of those VPNs are actually selling your data on the back end. So your ISP may not be getting your data, but the VPN browser, VPN service can. And that's a big reason, by the way, I don't endorse anymore private internet access, CyberGhost, and ExpressVPN, because they were purchased by Cape Technologies, which is a very shady company. And you have people going with Opera GX, which is selling your data as well and spying on you to make money on you. And that's not really a VPN they offer, and that's a proxy. They're gathering your data in the VPN to sell it. Meta actually had what was it? This Onavo, I think it was. Onavo VPN. Yeah. So if you remember, there was this Onavo VPN service that was, free a while ago. And it was found that this VPN wasn't really protecting you. In August 2018, Facebook was forced to pull Onavo Protect from the iOS App Store due to violations of Apple's policy forbidding apps from collecting data on the usage of other apps. Yeah. You use private internet access? I used to use it. I don't anymore. I use Proton VPN and Mullvad VPN, which, little plug here, I am affiliated with Proton. If you want, you can go get them through the links in my bio. It helps support my channel and my work. So that's just an easy way to support my channel by signing up to Proton through the link in my bio. They do have free service as well, but if you do ever upgrade to a paid service, they do give me a portion of that every time you renew your service and everything. So it's helpful for keeping the channel afloat. What is with NordVPN? Not using it, but I know a lot that are using it. I'm not a fan of NordVPN, particularly because they gotten a little bit of a issue with a cybersecurity researcher. This was a few years ago. Let me make this very clear. The issue itself wasn't that much of an issue. The way they responded to it is why I don't really trust them. So they had a security issue on a couple of their servers. Wasn't that major of an issue. A security researcher found out about it, and Nord would not disclose the issue. They kept trying to sweep it under the rug, and it took pressure from the cybersecurity community to get them to admit there was a problem. And it took them, I think, a year or so to get this information out of them. And let me make this very clear. It's wrong for people to, judge a company by that they got breached. Because there's two types of companies. I forgot who famously said the quote. Those who know they've been breached, and those who don't know they yet have been breached. And it's not a matter of if, but when a compromise happens. That's why we always tell you, don't focus so much on securing the door, but limiting the blast radius as well for when something does happen, that you can limit that exposure. So, Nord got caught in a pickle. Let me see if I can find this, actually. NordVPN security issue disclosure. Trying to find the specific one. Yeah, and this was the big reason they actually started doing, okay, here we are. It's the 2018 breach. There we go. Picture user in 2018 worried about a report of a NordVPN breach, now forward to 2024, and the same user is comforted by the firm's most recent transparency report. The voyage emphasizes not merely the minimal effect of the original incident, but also NordVPN's incredible recuperation, unshakable. I mean, yeah, it's been a few years and they've done some things, but basically the issue was, this. In March 2018, NordVPN suffered a localized data leak on a single server in Finland as a result of an insecure remote management system in a third-party data center. The NordVPN data leak was alarming, yet NordVPN assured that no user activity, logs, passwords, or usernames were leaked. The data leak was a flaw in a third-party system and not in NordVPN's underlying infrastructure. The window of the breach was between January 31st and March 5th of 2018, and evidence of the hack did not come until May 3rd, 2018. It was not until April 2019 that NordVPN was informed of the breach by security experts. Their reaction was swift and decisive, and they immediately shredded the affected server and severed ties with Krianova. The public announcement, however, only occurred in October 2019 after the leak had been disclosed on Twitter. This delay led to frustration among some users who took to Reddit to discuss the growing misinformation about NordVPN, with many questioning the company's transparency and the extent of the breach. So yeah, they had an issue. And yeah, they've done some things since then to remediate their issues with them. They're definitely not on my shit list to the extent of LastPass, which I still do not like that platform. Just to make that clear. If you are using LastPass, get on another platform. But NordVPN, the problem is... the site has... Yeah, I know they have an ad for it, but... they also talk about that. I just was focusing on the one thing. The one thing that I do not like about NordVPN, amongst... besides what I mentioned as well, is that the people that are advertising NordVPN often are not cybersecurity creators, and they're portraying NordVPN in a way that is not true of a VPN service. Let me explain. They sell NordVPN as this amazing silver bullet to protect your entire system, basically. You use a VPN and you're, suddenly secure. I wouldn't ever advertise that. And I've seen it from, no hate to, some of the creators out there, because they don't know better, but I've seen, like, Phil DeFranco talk about NordVPN, and, he, was selling it as, protecting, all that with these security features of antivirus and blah, 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 in there. And that's not truly the case with the VPN. It can do... It's basically tunneling your connection, but it should not be relied upon as securing all the data coming through it in terms of, like, making sure it's not malicious. You can do a few things on there, like, for example, when I build my own VPNs, I often have them do their DNS lookups over Quad 9, which builds into there the ability to filter out malware at the DNS level. You can do things like that. But even I understand, like, when I do things like that, it's only offering a certain level of security. Even if I were to slap on antivirus to inspect the, traffic going in and out of it, it can only do so much Because let's say you download a file that's password protected, it can't do crap. And that can only be inspected upon extraction. So I think to the average person, I think they're doing a disservice because they're overselling the capabilities of what a VPN can do. And they're putting too much trust in the VPN service themselves, and no one should actually have the belief that any provider is not going to comply with a lawful order to hand over certain data. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Proton. Their VPN service is nice because I can use the VPN while I travel, and I can, access, Hulu and all these different things. But, and then, of course, secure over public Wi-Fi networks and everything. But it only can offer a certain level of privacy and security. And, like, if you're trying to be even more private with your connection, I would tell you to use Tor. Yeah, I know some of you are going to say about, Tor having its issues. Proton is also one of the few that protects against, I think it's called tunnel vision, that attack, which is basically a timed attack that you can actually de-anonymize a VPN based on the timing of it, as I recall. And the way to secure against that is you use another VPN server to have them work against each other in a totally different way. Proton's one of the only VPN providers I know that actually has that as an option. Now, it does slow down your connection, but it is a capability, and it's called Secure Core. It's an option. Also, VPN just inherently slows your connection. Well, anytime you are routing a connection outside of your direct path, yeah, it's going to slow it down. That's a given. Whether you're talking about a proxy, a VPN, Tor, I2P, you're talking about taking the internet path, not going direct to you, but routing around to you. It's no different than what's quicker. Let's say you are going from work to your home. You probably can think of several ways to go from work to your home. But if you take a longer route, yeah, it's going to take longer. But you end up getting there, but it's taking a longer route. If I'm sending data to some European country, isn't it harder for American authorities to get logs? Yes and no. It depends on the country that you're actually sending the data to and the system that they have on there. Like Molvad, straight up doesn't really have any logs on you, and they can't really tie much to you because they don't have any information. Doesn't Molvad have that too? Maybe? I use Molvad, I don't know, honestly. We have a nice law here in the EU. You're not allowed to advertise stuff that you're not capable of... Capable of what? But yeah. Oh, by the way, Vampire, since you're in... the livery. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is one thing. We have similar things in the US with false advertising, but the problem is the US is a little bit more lenient with things. Like, I know there's a whole issue right now with Tesla going through the courts about the false advertising around the self-driving cars. That whole thing they've been trying to do, and they really haven't managed to do, and they probably won't because of it. Alright. I don't know who Keep Solid is, but it's more about who owns them. Can network provider companies install spyware and malware on devices? Not necessarily. Because they would have to have access to your devices. But they can spy on your network activity because most people are just using the DNS provider out the box from your provider. And they're actually selling a lot of that data on who you're connecting to with DNS and everything. Give me your gut reaction to this company. What is it? Keep Solid? Okay, they're headquartered in the US. Ooh. Trying to corroborate a, I'm trying to corroborate a couple of different sites on what they're reviewing on it. So it looks like... Yeah, based in New York, so subject to Five Eyes jurisdiction. We get that. I mean, I don't know if you're really that worried about it. That is an issue. It logs IP addresses, at least temporarily. And then I remember reading somewhere about... Hold on. Yada. It wasn't great. Privacy policy. Sure, only 55% of people actually read the blah, 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 higher than expected, but if you've read Keep Solid VPN Unlimited's privacy policy, then you have some genuine cause for concern. That's because the company keeps a ton of customer information, although some of it is only stored during the VPN session and is never connected with any specific user's personally identifiable information. That being said, Keep Solid VPN Unlimited logs name, company name, email, username hash, password hashed. I mean, you kind of expect those two to be there. IP address, they'll probably need that for connectivity. Browser type, operating system, same for the connectivity. Device type, country, time zone, country, makes sense. Total amount, session dates. Ooh. Yeah, there's some concern there. And I also don't like this there. No split tunneling. If you don't know what that is, I can split it out. I think there's some Ukraine connection. Yeah, the privacy policy is what raises an eyebrow for me, and then the, yeah. If you download the app for the provider, yeah. You're gonna get a card computer advantage. Look, I got enough things I want to buy already that my money needs to go to. I gotta get a new ham computer over there. I gotta upgrade my MNT Pocket Reform little laptop. I want to upgrade these two machines over here. Not enough money to go around most days for all the things I want to do. Split tunneling, wouldn't that just be a feature of the app? Yes and no. Split tunneling can also be done at the VPN level. Like, one thing I actually did, I have a GitHub, and if you actually look in one of my projects, I actually made a split tunnel switch. Now, this is, of course, only Linux only, but the idea basically is it uses a network manager, and then you can have it bypass certain subnets, because like I have multiple VLANs and subnets, so I need to make sure that I can still access my things when using a VPN. So I have this little script over here that I can basically tell it to split tunnel out, and it basically just, you put whatever subnets in here that you want to bypass, run the script, and then it will run through the things over here, find the default route that is not through the VPN, ensure we have a valid route, and then loop through each subnet and add a route, and verify if the route was successfully added. And then, of course, tell you it's active. It's sweet, though. I got so many different devices, though. It's just I don't have enough time in the day and money to go around. Do you think government should go to the open source alternatives away from Microsoft and co? Yes and no. So here's the issue that you'll run into. And I'm saying this as someone that ran my own email server and everything like that. There's a lot of time. Okay, so when I talk in terms of costs, you have to understand there are, I think it's the 4 costs: time, money, human, and opportunity. Those are the 4 costs. When you are a large organization, like government, it costs a lot of time, money, and human costs to maintain an entirely open source environment. Now, I know there's companies like Collab now and stuff like that, don't get me wrong. But you have certain criteria that the government has to operate in. Like in the United States, we have GovCloud. So AWS, Microsoft, Google, you name it, whatever vendor, they have specific data centers that are set up for government requirements. They follow government compliances like FedRAMP and stuff like that. In many cases, the US, to run that infrastructure, would have to run their own data centers, maintain those data centers, and have to spend the money, the time, and the human capital to maintain that infrastructure. For those of you that don't know, and I was talking to actually somebody that worked in the military to do this, each military base used to have their own email server at one point in time, and they had to maintain it. And that was before they moved to like Microsoft 365. There's of course like Milnet and a few things like that, but for the majority of things, they are on a 365 system, from my understanding. That was a lot of overhead that the military had to do, because you had to make sure there were personnel at each base to maintain said email server, to make sure emails could go to each base. That's a lot of expense in terms of time, money, and opportunity, as well as human. That could be spent elsewhere. So, in that case, it may not make as much sense. Now, there is the case for like Linux operating systems, things like that, because you can harden the operating system. And in many cases, there are parts of the government that are operating on Linux and other open source software. So I don't think I would necessarily argue for a completely open source approach when being a realist. I would definitely say to lean more on open source things when possible and it's cost effective. But it's only become realistic for a lot of these systems to actually get to that point, because if you've paid attention to the EU, they've flirted with this idea for years. And you've seen, like, I think off the top of my head, I think like Munich has been like an on again, off again, on and again relationship. Maybe it's another city or a few other cities I was thinking of. They're like, we're going to go open source. No, we're going back to Microsoft. We're going to go open source again. No, we're going to go back to Microsoft. We're going to go open source. It's taken time to even be able for it to be viable and feasible from a desktop environment approach. Like, I know there's companies like Home Depot. Their point of sale systems are running Linux. I couldn't remember which kind it was, but I remember when no one was around, I hopped behind the counter and I started playing with their computer because I saw it was like, that's not Windows, and I had to figure it out. I had to tinker with it a little bit. And it was an actually Linux system they have set up for that. So there's advantages and disadvantages, because with a lot of open source software, you then have to run your own infrastructure, which then means you have to spend the time, money, opportunity, and human cost to get that system to where you want it to be. And then if you have a shit hits the fan moment, you may not have a company to lean on that has the expertise level that you would like to have in an incident like that. Like, you can complain about Microsoft 365 and some of their security and things like that, but I think it's safe to say that when an issue is found by Microsoft, they have the experts and the knowledge and the know-how behind it to remediate those situations with 365. Now, I would also argue that on the operating system side, Microsoft is definitely behind the ball on a lot of things. There's no denying that. So there's pros and cons to the approaches, having worked in the field for a while. Government using Linux stuff is actually very relatable. Our government used to fund a distro called Pardus with a custom init and package manager called Mudur, Principal, and Paisai, the voice Turkish people make when they're calling a cat. It then became Debian and was basically left to rot. Yeah. There's inherent costs to setting up a lot of these things. So you may be thinking you're saving a lot in terms of money by not going to Microsoft or these vendors or anything, but then you have to spend the money on the humans to be able to maintain said systems, the time to get that to where you want it to be, and then you have to also spend the opportunity cost to make sure all those employees are trained. And what opportunity cost is essentially, let's put it this way. You always have an opportunity cost in your own life. You could be spending an hour to watch Netflix, which costs you the opportunity, just throwing this out there, of an hour for you to tinker with a home lab and better educate yourself on cybersecurity. That's just an example of an opportunity cost. You have opportunity costs built into every situation and decision you're making out there. And that's what you have to consider. So when it comes to the opportunity cost, okay, you're spending all this time and money as well as opportunity cost on employees to be trained to operate and manage the stack with open source versus the time, money, and opportunity cost with another party to run this software. And you have a proprietary thing. There's pros and cons to it. That's not necessarily true, though. By not paying for every single Windows license on the touchscreen boards, you can save about $5 billion USD, which can feed those kids with a free meal in school. But then how much is the human cost to actually maintain all those people per year? Because you're going to need system administrators for that, and not one person can do that. And it's a lot less it's a lot more than you think to have those humans, then also on the training costs of those people, and then the opportunity costs again, because could those people be doing something better with their time? I'm not saying there's any right answer. I'm saying it's not as black and white as you think it is. Trust me, I've been on that decision. I've been on teams trying to decide that thing as the Linux person, and I say, look, you can self-host your own infrastructure and think you're going to save yourself in terms of Microsoft, desktop or server licensing costs and everything. But then you have all these other costs that come down with it because, okay, great. You're talking about Windows licensing. What about all the other software? All the other workflows? Everything else that has to be re-engineered that was designed to work on Windows. There's a lot more to it than just, the license cost. The software that runs on Windows, that doesn't have a Linux version. Now you have to replace that. Now you have to re-engineer everything else out there. Then how many years is it going to take you to get parity with the systems you previously had? Again, I'm not saying there's any right answer. I'm saying it's not as black and white as people think. Alright. Vampire, what TikTok did you send me? Looks like some kind of ham radio thing. Alright, let's see. Yep. Yep. Yep, so let's see. He's got a choke there. Okay. He's got a 9-to-1. Nice. But where's his tuner? I mean, I'd still throw a tuner on that. It might be working nicely, don't get me wrong, but I'd still throw a tuner behind that. But yeah, that's why I like radio. There's a whole joke about Canon antenna, and I've seen somebody use a combine as an antenna, like just the metal piece on it, to antenna. I've seen people use siding of a house. There's a whole thing of Canon antenna. Oh, hold on. Let me run that again. Sorry about that. All right.
I am literally... Here's the fun thing about amateur radio is I am literally using the gutter of the carport here.
He's literally using the gutter
as an antenna. And
looks like what? He's got a little ICOM radio here, if I'm not mistaken. X6100. I think that's... So he's got it off a battery pack over there. I think I actually have that same battery pack.
Power.
So he's got a ferrite choke over here. You always want a ferrite choke when you're doing HF. I actually have one on my antenna. I still got to put that up, that video up of what I did to install it. No, wait. Hold on.
Power.
No, so that's his BNC cable. That's his choke over there. Okay. With the ferrite. So he made his own little choke.
9-to-1.
So that's his 9-to-1. So he literally has the wire going to the gutter over there.
Contacts.
Yep, he's getting contacts out there. I'd slap a tuner on that, like I said, because the transceiver over there can do some corrections, but I'd still put a tuner in between it. Like, I have my ATU 100, which is a little open source one that's nice. There's a few others out there you can basically have with a battery and everything. What is the choke? Basically, what a choke is basically, hold on. Let's see if I can get a picture.
Amateur radio is, I am literally radio. Here's the fun thing about it.
Let me see if, where you put that in.
I am literally using the gutter, the carport here, as an antenna. And, as you can see,
This camera's really jumping around, though.
the RFI happening on the phone here. Power.
So that's the choke over there. So basically, you want to have a choke out there to reduce the RFI that can come in. Now, you can either make these yourself or you can buy them. Let me see if I can, like, pull up a couple. DX Engineering. DX Engineering is a site I go to for a lot of my own stuff. Come on, Internet. Load. DNS lookups are getting kind of slow. If I remember, it stops interference. Yep, it does. So, blah, blah, blah. Go away. Okay, so... let me see, antennas, balance, ununs, and chokes. So basically, what they do is they help reduce, this is probably the exact one he was actually using, or maybe something like it. It's a 9-to-1 over here. So this is actually the exact choke I have on mine. So basically, it's a mix of ferrite, ferrite in there to, you know, have wire go through it to clean up the RFI and everything. On HF, you kind of need it. On VHF, UHF, you don't really need it as much by the nature of how it works. But yeah, you can get like feeds over here, That's how they work, basically. You can make your own, but essentially, they have some ferrite, in here. So you would run your cable through there, and then you'd have it through all these beads over there. The mix is actually what determines how well they operate. And you can make your own choke many different ways. You can do it through a ferrite ring like he was showing and wrap your wire around it multiple times. You can also do a poor man's choke by taking your wire and running it around a PVC pipe several times and then zip tie it together, and that can be a choke. It's not going to work as well as a ferrite bead, but yeah. It's found on all controller wires like the Xbox and PS2. It's found on a lot more than that, but yeah, if you look, you use it on a lot of electronics to clear out RFI. So my 360 controller, if you ever wondered what that bulge is, that's ferrite in there as an RF choke to reduce interference. You'll find it on a lot of different devices that you use every day, and you probably just weren't aware of what it was. But yeah, choke is very useful. I put it on a lot of my devices. You can actually buy them in addition to it. Actually, I can show you a bunch that I got that I was going to slap on some power connectors. If I can remember where I put them. Yeah. So, I have a bunch of these because I slap them on devices that I think are causing interference in my radio experimentation. They come in all sorts of different sizes, but essentially, you can, let me just get this. So you basically just get, that's all it is. It's halved in this case, and then I can run a cable right through it, and then just clamp it down. So you can do that on USB cables, audio cables, power supplies, all sorts of things, and it should be able to help reduce noise. And often you only have to put it at one end. Sometimes you can put it on both ends, but it helps out tremendously with RF noise. Now you do have to make sure you get them in the right mix to apply to the frequencies that you want to hit. HF is relatively sensitive to those things. And HF is between 3 and I think 3 and 30 megahertz, although my HF setup goes between 3.5 to 57 megahertz is where my antenna is tuned. And then in spring, I'll be adding another antenna for 160 and 80 meter to improve that side, because I can do 80 meter to 10 meter. And for what those of you not aware, what that is basically you can actually measure the distance in the wavelength. So, let me see if I can remember. 400. Yeah, so, I've never took the test, but I know a lot for radio. Get your ham license, buddy! Do it! I'm trying to remember. 4 gigahertz. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I did the math right. So, 2.4 gigahertz is 0.125 roughly, or about 12 centimeter band. So, that's what we talk about when it's wavelength there. So, you basically have to figure out the wavelength. You take 300, which is the size of, the speed of light. 300 million, meters per second. And then you divide it by, megahertz. So when we talk about, Yeah, so if you're at 3 megahertz, you're at roughly 100 meters. If you're, you know, at 5 gigahertz, you're at the 6 centimeter band. Because basically, the wavelength itself, physically, is at that far of a distance. Could easily pass the tech license, but when I tried last practice test, I couldn't. Just do it! It's not that hard. The technician is like stupid easy. I'm general class, and I'm working on my amateur extra eventually in the next few months. That's my plan. Alright. But yeah, you can basically turn anything into an antenna. Alright, let's see. Alright, what did you send, Vampire? Nintendo just made games illegal. Wait, what? Is this about the whole thing where they, like, they patented some game mechanics or something like that, so that way people can't,
Nintendo.
like, summon monsters and stuff? Too much responsibility with that license. Just don't do stupid things, it's fine.
Used to protect Mario's mustache. Now they want to own the concept of pressing a button. In the last 2 weeks, they secured patents on summoning allies and switching between mounts. Mechanics that exist in everything from Elden Ring to bloody World of Warcraft, and have done for years. This isn't about protecting innovation anymore. This is declaring war on it. And to me, this is everything wrong with modern gaming.
Yeah,
Corporate
Nintendo
greed
officially
wrapped
has
up
been
in
around long
Pikachu
enough to be the bad
cosplay.
guy.
So what madness have Nintendo been up to? Well, they've just had 2 patents granted. The first one covers summoning a companion that automatically fights enemies on your behalf.
This
You
is so
press a button,
stupid.
An ally appears, it battles anything hostile nearby, and the
Necromancers have been a thing longer than video games, like Dungeons and Dragons, to do this very thing. Like Neverwinter Nights inside of the PC side. You can think of so many games that have had this mechanic before Pokemon was even really a thing. So that patent really needs to be challenged, because this has been something that's pre-existed, like, for decades, to the point that even if it were patentable, that patent, from my understanding, would have expired right now. Because I remember, well, maybe not right now, but I remember, like, in 3D printing, we had patents that expired from the 1980s from Stratasys that didn't allow us to even put an enclosure around a 3D printer. And only recently, we were allowed to put a heated enclosure and market that, because they had the patent around it. This is so stupid that, you know, Nintendo is doing this kind of thing, that they've officially become the villain in the gaming industry. Nintendo used to be that company that everyone never really had bad things to say about in terms of gaming. You know, the Nintendo 64 was great, then they had the Game Boy whole era from Game Boy, Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced, Game Boy, you know, Advance SP, the Switch was kind of like, when it was kind of going, You know, the Wii U, the Wii, like, it was one of those consoles, like, everyone really enjoyed it, and Nintendo did great jobs. Now they're at the point where they're pissing a lot of people off. And that was already after people had issues with Nintendo for years, where there's a reason why I probably will never stream Nintendo games. It's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm fearful that Nintendo will copyright strike me for just playing their own games, as has happened to a lot of other people.
second patent, mounts. Literally jumping on or off a ground or flying mount. A fundamental mechanic that's existed in every game that has a horse for literally the last 30 years. If you've played Elden Ring, you've used a summon. Spirit Ashes work exactly like this. Summon the Mimic Tier, it fights whatever's trying to kill you, and of course FromSoft.
This was in Elder Scrolls. I think, like, not Elder Scrolls 3 because they didn't have a mounting mechanic. I think riding a horse was part of Elder Scrolls 1, or at least 2, the DOS games. Elder Scrolls 3 was the first 3D of the Elder Scrolls game. Yeah, this is so dumb. Because I'm pretty sure the mechanic around people mounting a horse or another animal has been something that's been around for as long as I can remember in gaming.
Software didn't invent this either. It's been a staple of games since the 90s. The scariest part of it all is Nintendo doesn't even need to win these patent fights. The threat alone does the work. Uncertainty kills the innovation faster than any court ruling ever could. When a small studio's prototyping companion systems, they're not thinking, will this be fun? They're thinking, will this bankrupt us? Will we be taken to court? Can we afford a legal battle? That's how you suffocate creativity, making experimentation feel like Russian roulette. What Nintendo's done here is move beyond protecting characters to owning fundamental mechanics, the building blocks of how games work, and they filed these patents right after.
And this is just as bad as that one studio that owns
the biggest thing in gaming. Coincidence?
Patent around like
Pocket Pair, a tiny indie studio, shipped a survival game.
I think it was one of the Lord of the Rings games where the NPCs would remember you and interact with you differently.
1 million concurrent players on Steam alone.
I can't remember what it was and where it was.
Copies in its first year. Overnight, it became real competition for Nintendo. Now look, there's no denying.
I still haven't played Palworld.
Inspiration from Pokemon. Nobody's arguing that.
I totally want to play it now just to stick a finger to Nintendo.
For the last 20 years, added survival mechanics, base building, weapons, actual challenge, and the sales numbers are proof there was a massive demand for this that Nintendo just ignored and still do to this day. But instead of competing by making better games, Nintendo chose legal warfare. Within months after Palworld releasing, they file a patent infringement suit on Pocket Pair. The mad part is they filed those patents we just talked about after Palworld's success. They saw what worked, rushed to patent it, and then sued the people who actually dared to innovate.
That's such bull.
The result is Pocket Pair's been forced to gut core features from the game. They removed the ball throwing mechanic, which by the way is another Nintendo patent filed after Palworld launched. They had to redesign their game after launch because Nintendo decided basic gameplay mechanics belong to them. That's not protecting IP, this is crushing a threat through intimidation. The saddest part is this isn't new behavior, it's systematic. Back in 2018, Nintendo went after a Japanese studio called Colopal over their virtual joystick controls. A 5-year legal battle ended with them having to pay 3.3 billion yen to Nintendo. That's over $30 million for letting players drag anywhere on the screen to move their character, using a virtual touchscreen joystick.
That's such bull.
Nintendo have patented that too. Think about how mental that is. Every mobile game with movement control.
We need copyright and patent reform so bad. I've been saying this for a while.
Crosshairs. They basically patented the concept of moving, like they'd invented touching a screen. It blows my mind. But they didn't just go after commercial studios. Nintendo have nuked hundreds of player-made games, mods, and everything in between. A DMCA blitz for anyone who even dares go near anything even remotely similar to a Nintendo game. Projects like AM2R and Pokemon Uranium, games that people spent years making because Nintendo just wouldn't. These weren't competing products, they were love letters, and Nintendo's response to that was legal annihilation. We're looking at 20 years of this same pattern. Nintendo sees innovation in their space and responds with lawsuits instead of responding with better games. They've been systematically bulldozing anyone who dares to do what they refuse to do. At this rate, they'll probably patent jumping next. The message to developers is crystal clear. No innovation even remotely near Nintendo's IP is safe. They don't just own Mario's face anymore. They want to own the concept of moving left and right. It's crazy. The real damage though is developers are self-censoring before they even start prototyping. Right now there's an indie team somewhere out there scrapping their companion combat system because they can't afford to find out if it's too close to Nintendo's patents.
That's
Another
such
studio
bull.
just redesigned their mount traversal because the legal risk isn't worth it. And this will be happening every day. Spreadsheet risk analysis has replaced game design. Instead of asking will this be fun, developers are asking will this bankrupt us? The most experimental spaces where new genres emerge are just going to go quiet because innovation near Nintendo's patents feels like playing with explosives.
See, if I were in Nintendo's shoes, instead of, competing against these games with this legal warfare, what I would actually do is reach out to these companies and say, hey, can we work together? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Rockstar. Y'all, chat, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think Rockstar, I was told, they actually ended up hiring some of the modders and supporting their work for Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. I heard something like that. I could be wrong, and I'm more than welcome to be corrected if I am. But I think that would be the proper approach to take, is if you are seeing that this is what your community is desiring, instead of punishing the studio that's giving the community what they want, and by extension hurting your community, work with the studio that's innovating the features and see, can you work together to make an even better product altogether? Because it looks like to me, Nintendo's not been able to innovate in quite a few years. That's my perspective on it.
Just think about the mechanic.
It was Rockstar for RP Worlds. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was Rockstar. But yeah, I think that's the approach that game studios need to take. The problem is you have these monolithic mega studios that they can't really innovate. Like, look at Borderlands 4 and how crappily it's run on my PC with a 3070. And what's this schmuck's face, the CEO of the company, is like hating on people for saying you should optimize your game better, or you should have better hardware. And it's like, well, yeah, now that it's proven that, like, the performance, decreases after about an hour of gameplay, just turn off the game and turn it back on. Yeah, that's not a fix. That's just showing you have a bad memory leak if it can't work on consoles and degrades performance over time. But yeah, they can't really innovate, and these big studios are really shocked at the same time when games like Pal World come out and they do these massive successes, or what was it, Hollow Knight Silksong was doing such an amazing job, and they're like curious like how it's so successful. Well, simple. You're not listening to your damn community.
That could just disappear. Summons, mounts, companion combat. These aren't Nintendo innovations, they're gaming fundamentals that have evolved across dozens.
Stardew Valley has a whole manual from the creator on how to make mods for the game. Really?
The power
I've never played it, so I didn't know.
The big studios can afford to fight these legal fights, but indies can't. So the people pushing the boundaries, the ones creating genuinely new ideas, they're the ones getting sued out of existence. Meanwhile, safe AAA sequels march on unchanged. And we feel it. Fewer weird systems, fewer risks, games designed by lawyers instead of designers. The creativity that actually...
And I'm so bored with a lot of these AAA games.
Suffocated under a pile of patent applications and lawsuit threats. It's no longer competition, it's complete control. So let's call it what it is. It's not passive defense of intellectual property. It's an act of aggression designed to control who gets to make what kind of games. Nintendo watches a tiny studio succeed with a mechanic they've ignored for decades, and their response is to rush to patent those exact mechanics, then sue. The timing isn't a coincidence, it's a strategy. See what works, file a patent, then use that patent as a weapon against anyone who dares innovate in your space. Think about it like this. Valve created Steam, but they didn't patent digital game distribution. Epic made Unreal Engine available to all developers. Even EA, bloody EA, competes with better games, not better lawyers. When Apex Legends exploded, did they sue the Battle Royale genre out of existence? Of course they didn't. They made their game better. And when I'm praising the likes of EA, you know something is seriously wrong. But Nintendo...
Yeah, if we're praising EA, the world's gone bad.
Engine, filing patents on
Hell's frozen mechanics.
Over. Wait for someone to use them, sue them. Most indies can't afford that fight, so they fold. The ones who can afford it get bled dry in court for years. Either way, Nintendo wins without having to actually innovate anything. You don't have to beat your competitors when you can make competing too expensive and too risky to even try. If you own the rule book, then everyone else plays by your rules or doesn't play at all. This is where we're heading now. Fewer studios willing to take risks because the penalties are too high. More of the same bland committee designed games because innovation has become a huge liability. What Nintendo's really protecting, it's not their characters, it's not their innovation. They figured out that you don't need to make better games when you could make making games too dangerous for anyone else to try. So when you see a studio taking real creative risks, building something weird, something experimental, something that pushes against the established order, support them, because those risks are bigger than you think. They're not just risking failure anymore, they're risking everything. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, I agree with this video. and how their take is on these things. And honestly, when people ask me, well, like, why aren't you playing this new game or that new game? There's very new games that I'm actually interested in playing because it feels like they're just bullshit. That's just how it is. That's why I keep playing a lot of the old games that I grew up with over and over again, because those games I know I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to be entertained by, because a lot of the new games just don't appeal to me as much anymore because studios aren't taking risks. They're not, and then any of the studios that are taking risks, those big studios are just trying to go after because they see it as eating their lunch rather than seeing that we come from an economy of abundance. We can all coexist here. Pal World, there's a space for them, just like there is for Pokemon. And because Nintendo dropped the ball on a lot of the mechanics people wanted to see in Pokemon that Pal World picked up on, they didn't say, oh, yeah, maybe we can do that. They just fought them in court. And in my honest opinion, when you're a studio and you're going the legal route, that means you've lost the point and you've failed and you no longer can innovate. And that's the problem with a lot of these big studios is they can't innovate anymore. So that's my 2 cents on that whole subject. I think we talked about this a little bit too. But yeah, and then,
Microsoft.
Let me see about this. Hold on. So this is a video from UFD Tech. My mod actually had to pull this because for some reason I couldn't see his videos, and I don't know why, but I must be blocked or something. I honestly don't know why. It's weird to me, but, maybe I have a feeling it's because maybe I left a comment on one of his videos at some point and he just didn't like me and blocked me. And if he's making tech videos and I don't know even what I said or did to do that, that's the only thing I can think of why you would block me when you're a tech creator yourself. And I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. But anyway, we'll see what he said.
Microsoft just does not think consent is important. It's about what they want to do with your computer, not what you want. If you start installing apps and programs
welcome to what I've been saying for years.
The ability to turn off automatic updates. Now,
yeah, Microsoft has been trying to do this for years. Now, I have the ability to control a lot of the automatic updates because I'm an enterprise. I use Windows Enterprise, so I have a bit more features around it, and I can control it with group policies and things like that. But I also only use Windows Enterprise on this stream box, excuse me, over here, because of the Elgato hardware I use, and I haven't really spent the time to really see if I can move that entire workflow to Linux. I'm pretty sure I can, but yeah. Just watch the Knights of Guinevere pilot. Good stuff. Knights of Guinevere. Is that a new game coming out? I'll look at that in a sec. Both my Windows 11 computers started doing this Control-Alt-Delete to log in, like WTF Microsoft. Really? Huh. I haven't seen that, but then again, I'm on Enterprise with Windows 11 Enterprise, and I've got some group policy set up through my MDM.
Microsoft Store, they're getting rid of the ability to turn off automatic updates. Now, you'll just be greeted with the option to delay the updates to a maximum of 5 weeks. Obviously, the workaround is to be on Linux or to not install things via the Microsoft Store, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And when you have things like Microsoft security updates taking out people's hard drives,
okay, so here's the thing.
It's unavoidable. And when
you know, they talk about, like, the Windows 11 24H2 update may cause SSD failures. My understanding is there was actually some more research done into this, and it was a very small set of disks, and it wasn't necessarily directly caused by Windows. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but I remember reading it, and then moving on from it. But yeah, there was another lab or something that did a deep dive into that.
Microsoft security updates taking out people's hard drives, maybe you don't want the EasyBall company dictating how and when they mess with your stuff on your computer.
And also, let me put it this way. While I do agree with that you should have the ability to control your updates and everything like he's talking on there, that is a fair point. I read it was another company firmware doing it. Yeah, that's what I was reading. It was something like that. I couldn't remember the specifics. It was something that didn't really happen to do with Windows. It just, I think, was a correlation, not causation. And to be fair, I was always looking at that and I'm like, on one hand, I can see how that makes sense, but on the other hand, I don't see how that makes sense. When people were trying to blame the update directly, and that's when the firmware update was like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But anyway, I do see Microsoft's point of view that you should have automatic updates enabled, and you should at most be able to delay it if you're getting things through the Microsoft Store, because the reality is, the majority of vulnerabilities that people end up getting exploited through are well-known CVEs that they then don't actually patch. And when people ask me, like, what's the, thing to do with securing your computer, and most people are like, should I install this software or that software? And my honest answer is, keep your system up to date. Don't click anything stupid. That will avoid like 95% of all of your issues out there. It doesn't matter if you go get this nice antivirus and everything. If you don't apply the patches, you're leaving yourself wide open. That's all it comes down to. Chief, I'm learning Linux command line for my information systems classes with VirtualBox. Nice. Happy hacking, bud. All right, so here's another video. This is from Talkin' Sasquatch. Move over Flipper Zero. Meowkit is here. So there's like so many of these different like Flipper Zero like clones, competitors I've seen coming out. There's a lot out there.
We've got our hands on something that nobody else has, and pretty much nobody else has even heard of. This is Meowkit. Now, Migo, one of the devs over at Meowkit, actually sent me this a couple months ago as a prototype. This thing is a one-of-one engineering sample. It is so freaking cool, but nobody else has seen this. And what's cool about the Meowkit is that it really tries to be the next generation of Flipper Zero. It's kind of the latest and greatest, and it's coming to Kickstarter very soon. Now, Meowkit aims to do what all the other Kickstarters.
Every time there's a Kickstarter project, I always side-eye it, because there's been so many different Kickstarter projects that you look at the project, their goals and everything like that, and you have to side-eye it and be like, are you a grift? That's why I like Crowd Supply a little bit more. Crowd Supply, fundraise projects tend to have a better success rate than Kickstarter, but that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it.
Promising it too, which is to try to dethrone the Flipper Zero as being the next latest and greatest hacking tool. And you know what? They might actually be onto something. This thing is super freaking cool, and even though it's just an engineering sample, this thing has a lot of potential. So today we're going to take a deep dive into not only the Kickstarter, but the actual Meowkit itself and figure out what it's all about. Man, I am so psyched to be able to share with you guys something that nobody else has. So, alright, let's break it down. This is Meowkit. I was so psyched about the Meowkit that I actually wore my Lucifer shirt, so I thought it was quite fitting. So quick disclaimer, as I do anytime I talk about Kickstarters, don't invest in a Kickstarter unless you literally have that money to burn. We've seen the M1 by Monstertech, the Cyber Pro, and I believe the Interrupt all be more or less Kickstarter rug pulls, so if
Yep, the Interrupt was one of those ones that I was actually interested in, but when I saw the details of it, I was like, of the actual Kickstarter, I'm like, the timeline and a bunch of other things were not adding up. So that's why I didn't put my money into it. Yeah, I like made an initial commitment, and then I like did some research, and then I was like, nope, I'm not going to commit to this project, and I yanked my, money and thing like that, because the Interrupt actually looked like one of the most promising ones, if it wasn't like
if you don't have the money, don't put it into Kickstarter. Now that being said, I've covered Kickstarters before that actually turned out to be real, like the BLE Shark Nano, and I actually got this one. This is the final product. It's super freaking cool, and it was a Kickstarter that got backed, so sometimes they do come to fruition. So Migo, the absolute legend, is one of the devs over at MeowKit. He reached out to me over email and showed me the project, which I had never seen before, which is weird because I've seen a lot of stuff. I look for this stuff, but it looked super promising, and he offered to send me an engineering sample, so of course I said yes. So let's start off by checking out the GitHub. We can see some of the specs in the overview, and then we'll get hands-on with this thing. All right, to the desktop. All right, so here we are down at the desktop, and this is the GitHub for MeowKit. Of course, anytime we run into projects that we like, throw them a star. I mean, it's the least we can do, but this is absolutely an awesome project.
Did my audio just crap the bed?
Front, left.
Oh. I think my audio is actually the one that this Rodecaster sometimes needs to get unplugged and plugged back in.
Front, left.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's the Rodecaster itself sometimes just needs to unplug and plug back in.
Anytime we run into projects that we like, throw them a star. I mean, it's the least we can do, but this is absolutely an awesome project. So scrolling down, we can see my buddy Migo holding up another engineering sample of the MeowKit. Super cool. It's actually not just a hacking device, it's kind of a device that does a whole bunch of other cool stuff, and we'll get into
my favorite distro.
So,
I use quite a few.
Pocket-sized multi-tool device and AI chat, so they actually have AI functionality as well in this. I think it's kind of a cool idea. I know a lot of people are trying to put AI into everything, so I mean, it's kind of understandable that AI into a hacking tool kind of just makes sense.
I don't know how I feel about that.
To the Kickstarter, which if we start there, there's really not much on it because, again, this is pre-Kickstarter. We're doing this before anybody knows about this. So it will be up on Kickstarter very soon, but again, keep your eye out and I'll have a link down below. So if we scroll back down there, it actually just says what comes with the MeowKit, at least with the samples that I got, and gives you some other information. But if we scroll down, we see information on updating the firmware, which I have just done. So we have all the latest
ESP32S3.
So that's good there. And if we scroll down a little further, here we have the hands-on experience, which is very cool. Fun little cartoon, but yeah, once you power on the device, you check both the buttons to make sure that they work, and then you get the interface, which is actually really nice. It's got a touch screen and color interface. I don't know what the guys over at Flipper Zero are thinking when they're doing their next device. It's going to be black and white. Color is the way to go, and touchscreen, if you can implement it well, it's a no-brainer. If you look closely,
yes and no.
Right here, it's very cool. You can see
I'd be concerned about the battery life, though.
This is definitely an engineering sample, and they probably just had it 3D printed by someone like today's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for all things PCB design, manufacturing, 3D printing, CNC sheet metal fabrication, and so much more. They've got engineers on staff.
I've used PCBWay. They made the backplate for my MNT Pocket Reform, which we'll be getting into in another video when I get the upgraded PCB.
Just a few of the applications that they have already installed. Now, one thing I do want to point out is this is a prototype. This is all very early, and that means that the firmware is also really early. Some things aren't implemented yet, and some things I've run into some like loops and some crashes, but again, I've run into that on every single piece of firmware that I've run on any device, let alone something that's pre-Kickstarter. So we'll look here and we'll see that we have BLE beacon, Wi-Fi spam, bad USB, IR, AI chat, and an LED on there. So they have a lot of the application structure kind of figured out already, and they're just kind of building it out as they go. It's only a two-person team, so it's a lot of work to get done with two people.
That's quite a bit of work.
If we scroll down here, we can see some of the applications and kind of how things are supposed to work. They have like a PC monitor on there. They have some games. They have all sorts of cool stuff. And actually, why don't we just flip over to the top-down camera and get a hands-on look? All right, so this is MeowKit in all of its glory. You can even see the layer lines on it right there, which is very cool. And hello. But yeah, this is the MeowKit. Now, I gotta say, for something,
I wonder if the final is going to be injection molded.
I mean, really good. So they use a good factory or whatever they did to print this thing. It looks great. But yeah. And then we have the GPIO on top, which is nice. We've got our USB-C, which is the only good USB, power on top, and then we have another port on the side for data. That's where our micro SD card goes in. So let's fire.
Why they didn't combine them?
Top button turns it on.
That's just curiosity.
There we go. And we get the little start up screen. A battery is at 78%, so we're good for now. We test A, then we press B, and then we should be in action. And yeah, there's our MeowKit interface. Let's see if I can drop the exposure just a little bit to get this easier to see. All right, so that's a little bit better. So yeah, we've got our BLE beacon, our Wi-Fi spam, our bad USB, LED, AI chat, and IR. So if we do right, if we just press on it, so again, touchscreen, and this is running what they're calling Spam Apple, which it looks like it's just going to go ahead and send a bunch of BLE beacons out, and anything that can read it will, you know, get inundated with BLE spam. So cool.
Okay.
Let's go back. And then let's see.
I've seen people mess with that kind of attack when it comes to DEF CON.
Yeah. So again, that's one of the things about this. It is a brand new firmware, so things don't all work right out the box, but that's okay. They will soon. So if we do Wi-Fi spam, here we go. It's running Wi-Fi spam. Let's take a look and see if this is actually working. Oh yeah, check it out. So we have all of these different connections right here popping up on my phone. So yeah.
I wonder if you can customize those networks.
Go ahead and stop spamming Wi-Fi to all my neighbors, because I know they must love that. Stop. And let's see what else we can do. I know the IR chat doesn't work. Let's see if LED does anything. Not yet. Bad USB. Not yet. Oh, I just froze it. This thing happens once in a while. Again, it's all beta. So I'll just reboot and we'll be good to go.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
And we're back. Cool. So if we go into bad USB again, we can see it actually does work. It's just I don't have any bad USB files on here right now, but that seems to be implemented and working fine. Hold back to get out of here. There we go. Let's see AI chat. I'm pretty positive that doesn't work. Yeah, so that's kind of what happens when there are features that haven't been implemented yet. It throws this cool little matrix code. So it's fun. I like it.
I'm curious what AI chat's going to look like, because
looks like that just doesn't work. No
if it's
problem.
an ESP32,
now it has an air mouse, which is
curious
cool
what
idea.
processor
It
stuff it
music,
has on
which
there.
I don't have any music loaded onto here. We have retro TV. I haven't gotten this to work yet, but it's supposed to link up and play like retro TV stuff. I'm not positive again exactly how that works, but it looks really
I'm curious about
One thing I know works is boom, Dino. Gotta love little games. So press screen. Oh, I have to press the screen. Okay. Whoop. Okay, I'm not very good at Dino, but that's, you know, it's one of those, what is it, T-Rex Runner, like the Chrome game that you can play if you're offline. It's still very fun, so let's skip out of there. And let's see what else. We've got volume meter. So, is this working? Hello?
No, it's not.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a, oh, it is working. Oh, nice. So this is like a volume meter. That's pretty fun. What else
it
can
is.
we do? Outs. PC monitor. Now, I know this isn't real because it's not plugged into my PC, but I do like the idea that you can, you know, monitor your PC with this little device. I'd have it sitting up on my
That part would be
desktop, 'cause again,
useful.
it looks really cool. So I'd have that just around. So that's very fun.
Especially if I can get that to see it over Linux.
And what else can we do? Let's go over here. And here's the matrix. And I think that just shows, what does that do? Yep, it just shows matrix code again. Exit. Web serial. What is demo? Yeah, see, more matrix code. NFC, more matrix code. And Mac, I don't know what this does, more matrix code. Fantastic. Scroll back down. Are we missing anything? Because you can see the menu right there. If we go this side, we have our control center, which has our brightness, our sound, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and we can lock the device. Pretty fun. Let's get back out of here. Oh, actually, we're swiping now. Swipe over here, and then we have somebody's time. It's not my time, but it is a time. And then if we scroll to the bottom, we have our file browser. Very, very
interesting.
Very cool. So we're going to switch the exposure back to seeing things normally, and we're going to do something I'm not sure I'm allowed to do, but we're going to take this thing apart and take a look. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty, so let's crack this thing open. Let's see if it opens easily. I've got them all off. And, oof, here we go.
That's really sandwiched in there with a lot of Captain tape.
Battery right here. And let's disconnect the battery. Careful. There we go.
Curious why they put all that Captain tape on there.
Cool, look at that. All sorts of fun stuff going on in there. There's our IR right there. And then what did that even say? Teaming translator? I'm not sure. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know what's up. Still very cool. Does this come out? Oh man, I don't want to pull on these. I don't want to push on anything either. How does this? Yeah, it's gonna have to hinge out. God, this thing's complicated. So one thing we do know, it's got an ESP32S3 in there. So that means this thing's got Wi-Fi 4 and Bluetooth 5, which is pretty fun. And oh yeah, we're glued in here. That's the problem. I'm not going to be able to take it apart any more than this. But I mean, I just like being able to get in here and kind of get a good look about what's going on in general. Because, yeah, again, it's just pretty cool. But yeah, that's the Meow Kit. This thing is so freaking cool. And I know it's a Kickstarter, but the fact that they went through this much work to get a prototype that actually works, well, mostly, is phenomenal. So I actually kind of trust this one. Because, again, of course, this is an engineering sample, but the fit and finish, if I actually ordered this and got this, I'd be perfectly happy. Now, I don't have a price on this thing yet, but I do know the Kickstarter is going to be open really, really soon. So if you're
I'll be curious what the price
you can
is.
Invest in one yourself. All right, guys. So what do you think of the Meow Kit? Does it look cool? You think it's going to replace the Flipper Zero? Leave a comment down below and let me know. All right, stay safe, stay curious.
So, I mean, it looks interesting. I don't know if it's going to replace Flipper Zero because there's a whole large community around it with the Flipper Zero, so it's really going to depend on the GPIO upgrades you can get with it and what the actual end result looks like, as well as the price point. I'm still iffy on the whole AI chat aspects of it. That's the one thing where I'm sitting back like, I don't know how that's going to work with an ESP32 because that's not a very powerful situation. I mean, a package. So I'm curious how that's going to work, or if that was just a buzzwordy thing that they kind of threw in. It could be, it'll be interesting to see what the end result basically is and what the community ends up being like around that. If I could host the AI at home, I would test it. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Found your channel because I was searching for Faraday bags. Interesting. Because I don't really tinker with them too much. I mean, I've talked about them, but there's not really much to it. But do you have a preferred VPN? I mean, I prefer Proton for everyday use, but if you want to be extremely private, Mullvad and paying in Monero or cash is best. Those are the two I recommend. I am affiliated with Proton. If you do want to get that through the links in bio, helps out to support the channel and everything, but I've been a Proton customer long before I was affiliated with them. I don't recommend anything I wouldn't personally use myself. Yeah, but Proton's what I use, especially when I travel, because I can access Hulu, Netflix, all that while I am abroad, and I like their entire privacy suite, from Proton Pass to simple login to alias your email logins and everything. It's one of the only password managers I know of that actually allows you to create not just different passwords and manage them, but also create different email aliases, so you can potentially have every single account have a different email and then manage them there. So if those accounts are ever exposed, it reduces your blast radius of, hey, you have an account here, but then your email's found in all these other places. And then, of course, the VPN is in there. Now, they do have a free version, which is pretty limited for all these features, which works okay for most people, but the paid-for version is what I use, and it works great. Wonder if it is Olama, supposedly. I don't know. I'm curious, because it's an ESP32, as I discussed. But, we shall find out, I guess. But like I said, with Kickstarter, it's, you know, you never know with those. Kickstarters always make me weary because you never know if it's going to be a, legit project or if it's just going to be snake oil that's trying to grift you. Like the Interrupt, as I talked about, was, a situation that came out. I mean, if you saw me in the Discord, I saw it and I liked it, but yeah. I mean, like, is the AI is over Wi-Fi, not local. Is it over Wi-Fi? I'd be curious about that, because then you'd have to configure it, and then it kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion, if you end up having to host it on your own Wi-Fi, because it's like, okay, you have a chat interface with it, but, I mean... if it was just ending up doing Olama over the network, kind of seems pointless to me, because you could do that with any device. And then at that point, I'd just rather run an LLM locally on my machine at that point. That's just me. Although I do eventually want to get an NVIDIA Jetson or something like that to run Olama or something locally, and then run my own LLM in a more powerful thing. That's actually why I want to get a 5070 or 5080 in this machine, to get more VRAM so I can do some LLMs to with a little bit more oomph than my 3070. I want to add more parameters. I do want a 5050 on this so I can do AV1 encoding for the streams and get some better quality, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Alright. I did have a couple of videos I thought of watching on stream here. I need to clean out my watch on stream playlist. There's quite a few things I haven't been able to get through here, but because now I'm on 106 videos, probably just create a new playlist. But anyway, okay. Yeah, eventually I want to go through this video, Model Context Protocol Explained, building an MCP server with Python. We'll probably do that another time, maybe on next stream, because that actually looked really interesting. I mean, I've been discussing the idea of MCP at work with a few people, but yeah, let's see. We can go into a slightly non-tech thing. Why fast food sucks now. I actually wanted to see this as well. This is from Patrick CC, who I do follow on YouTube for a little bit of time. He makes some interesting videos with different topics, but let's see. Why fast food sucks.
I'm going to show you a few different modern fast food locations with the logos removed, and I want to see if you can guess which restaurant it is.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. Starbucks? I'd say is... Wait. Maybe? Top left looks like Starbucks. I'd say bottom left is like McDonald's. That's Wendy's, and I'd say that's Five Guys. Maybe Rallies.
Fast food locations with the logos removed, and I want to see if you can guess which restaurant it is. Here is number 1. That is Panda Express.
Damn!
Here's number 2. That is Arby's.
Whoa!
Here's number 3.
0 for 2.
That is Burger King.
0 for 3.
4. That is Wendy's.
Wait, did I say that was Wendy's in the bottom right? Did I say that was Wendy's? I can't remember. I think I said that was Wendy's. I got 1! That's still an F. 1 out of 4, but I got 1!
Fast food restaurants in America have completely lost their identity, but it doesn't stop at these soulless gray buildings. Fast food used to be cheap, tasty, and most importantly, fast. And on top of that, the experience used to be fun. Today, the color is gone. The prices for a meal are almost the same as a regular restaurant.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this earlier because I wanted to order some food in because I forgot to get groceries this weekend. And, I was like debating, do I just want to run out to like Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's, or something like that to pick up food? But then I was like, I looked at Uber Eats and I'm like, I can get a buy one, get one of some food for me and Yitz, and it costs as much as one meal.
And the service is slower than
Taco Bell,
ever,
yeah, definitely. Still one of the more affordable fast foods.
By accident. In fact, It's all by design. And today I'm going to break down why fast food today is colorless,
it's definitely gone up, but it's still affordable.
and slow. And while it might sound like all hope is lost, there is something you can do to change it. And if enough of us do that, we just might be able to return to the glory days. Modern American fast food buildings are the perfect representation of the soul that's been sucked out of the industry. What used to be these creative architectural fun houses have transformed into sterile gray boxes that are severely lacking identity. Some of them kind of look like modern homes, some of them look like banks, some of them just look like...
Who is that? I want to see the bank one. What is that?
Modern homes, some of them...
That's a Taco Bell? What the hell? That looks like I'm going to, withdraw some money from an ATM. Wow.
Them look like banks, some of them just look like corporate offices. But when you remove the logo, you genuinely could not tell what restaurant it was. Compare that to what this architectural illustrator posted.
Okay, yeah, you got Pizza Hut, KFC, McDonald's, White Castle. I want to say that was, crap. I know what it is. I can't remember the name of it. Crap. It's a breakfast place. I can't remember. That's Rally's. IHOP. Steak and Shake. Long John Silver's? Could be wrong. And that's Taco Bell. Waffle House. Crap. There was another breakfast place. Not Waffle House. Bob Evans. Bob Evans. Or is that Cracker Barrel? They kind of have a similar look, I guess, if you look at the front. But that might be more Cracker Barrel. I've never been to a Cracker Barrel. So, I mean, I'm off base here. I don't know which one that would be.
Posted on Reddit. Even without the logos, you can still tell which building belongs to each fast food brand. Or can you? I'll see if in the comments one of you gets all 12 correct. Early Taco Bell locations were designed to evoke the look and feel of traditional Spanish and Mexican style architecture.
Yeah!
The original buildings featured stucco walls, red clay tile roofs, exposed wooden beams, and arched entryways. Now, you get a gray box with a modern purple LED light. Pizza Hut's red roof became such an iconic part of their design that now when a new business takes over the building and attempts to redesign, everyone knows it used to be a Pizza Hut.
Can I just make this very clear out there? My entire life, I have never liked Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is one of those pizza places that I punish myself every few years, and Domino's is the same way, where I order them just to be like, oh, yeah, maybe they're, a little bit different than I remember. Bland every time. And, Domino's and Pizza Hut both offer, the stuffed crust cheese, stuffed crust pizza. And on paper, that seems like an amazing, idea. How do you actually manage to make cheese tasteless? Oh, yeah, and feel like crap after. That, too. That totally, too.
But today's Pizza Hut? Yep, another gray box. McDonald's used to have these big glowing arches you could see from a mile away.
We still got some McDonald's near us that have the arches.
There are still a few locations that maintain that 1960s vintage look.
I like that look.
Take this Bloomington, Minnesota location, for example. It still has the massive arches on each side, the red and white striped bricks around the edges, and red outline gives it this cartoonish but welcoming vibe. But sometime in 2023, they decided to get rid of all that charm and paint it gray. During McDonald's nationwide boom in the 1970s, they made a major rebrand to build locations faster. The red mansard roofs with the yellow accents that were supposed to resemble French fries is what most people remember visiting throughout their childhood. There are still a few locations out there that haven't been modernized. This one in Dunedin, Florida looks absolutely beautiful with the palm trees.
I think it looks nice.
Sky.
That's a nice vibe.
Stunning Durham, North Carolina location.
I like that.
This photo was taken in 2021.
That's
but it
a
looks
nice
like
roof.
We took a time
I like
machine
that
back
roof.
to 1993. Sadly, this one was also painted entirely gray in 2024.
Ew!
Even this location outside of Disney World looked like a theme park of its own. And I'm sad to admit that this creative masterpiece has been replaced by what looks like a corporate headquarters.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Now, one of the main reasons behind the gray box trend is that it's a safer, smarter real estate investment. This strategy leans heavily on modular construction and prefab standardized architecture. When a previous brand needed a very specific build-out, which usually
I still see plenty of those old White Castles.
It just costs more. And in a way, they're also preparing for their imminent failure, because these vague buildings can be transformed into just about any other business. In New Jersey, this Wendy's was transformed into a Burger King. In Missouri, this old Burger King was turned into a Wendy's.
What the hell?
Former Taco Bell KFC combo was turned into a local pharmacy. And this former Arby's is now a local...
I want my damn combination. Remember these, like, see, like, I miss these, like, combination stores. You had the combination, like, Pizza Hut, Taco Bells, the combination KFC, Taco Bells. It was great, because you used to be able to pull up to these restaurants, and I'm like, I don't know. What do I want? I want a burrito and some chicken. That was great. Back in my stoner days, that was a godsend. Now I'm not really a stoner anymore, but still, there are some times when I'm like, I want a burrito and I want some fried chicken. But now, if I do that, I gotta go to 2 different places. You know how annoying that is? That by the time I get one, I'm like, F it, I'm going home.
The combo was turned into a local pharmacy, and this former Arby's is now a local pizzeria. And to no surprise at all, the local pizzeria made a more charming and visually interesting design. Now, my favorite is
feels
when
more
chains
opening.
actually
I'd go
do the
there.
opposite of this, when they repurpose an old building, like this old bank in Wilmington, North Carolina, that was transformed into a Dunkin' Donuts.
So I've seen like Starbucks and Dunkin's do this, and it's kind of interesting. There was a place I went to that Starbucks had they were inside a bank and you could actually chill out inside the vault. I thought that was a cool, little vibe, to do that. But,
It's undeniably smarter and probably more sustainable to build buildings that can outlive the brand inside them, which will in turn reduce waste and provide opportunity to future businesses. But there's just something sad about it too. Each restaurant lost all its character. But it's not just the exterior that lost its character. The interior is where many of these places thrived.
Oh, Taco Bell interior! Remember how wild, I think that's Taco Bell if I'm not mistaken. Remember how wild and fun the interiors used to be? Of like, Chief almost got locked in a vault. We ain't gonna be talking about that. Is that Burger King? Either way, like the 90s aesthetic, this is like what I remember from my childhood. And I remember when I've been on road trips and like you get those like Taco Bell, McDonald's, Burger Kings, all that have the old vibe. Yeah. This is a vibe. I miss this. But like these swivel chairs, I remember those like from the Taco Bell days. Like, I just associate those chairs with Taco Bell for some reason.
Stepping inside used to feel like entering a little world of its own. Taco Bell had these purple and teal Art Deco chairs, textured wall tiles, and neon squiggles that felt like walking through a 90s arcade. People today would probably call this tacky, and they might not be wrong, but damn, it has an identity. But before we dive deeper,
was it tacky? Yes, but you were getting good, cheap food, and it caught your eye.
The other day, I wasted hours trying to cancel all those subscriptions I forgot about. Luckily, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help.
Yeah, you're getting your bag, Rocket Money, yada.
You can select the
no
ones
complaints
Rocket
there.
Money has features.
But I want to get back to the
Take
food.
Control of your Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/PatrickCC or click the link in the description to get started for free. Wendy's had an immaculate 1970s grandma aesthetic, wood-paneled wall.
I forgot about this. I forgot they had that aesthetic. Yeah. Interesting.
Stained glass lamps hanging above every table. Plush.
Chief is getting hungry. I'm always hungry. I'm a fat man. I may be slimming down because I go to the gym, but I will always mentally be a fat man ready to eat.
Booths and soft yellow lighting that made it feel more like a cozy living room than a fast food joint. And these sunrooms? Dude, these sunrooms absolutely ripped. Pizza Hut felt like a legit sit.
You want this video link in chat? Here, I can get that for you. Wait, no, hold on. That wasn't it. It didn't copy. Here, I'll put that in for you. There you go. There you go, chat.
Down restaurant with thick carpeting, red vinyl booths, and those iconic Tiffany-style lamps that turned every meal into a dimly lit.
I remember this. I remember that salad bar. You know, your family would take you to Pizza Hut parties, and I remember the Pizza Hut wasn't that bad back then. It was okay. It was an amazing pizza. The local pizzerias still were better. But, like, you had that unlimited salad bar over there. So, like, you could go get pizza, and then, you know, all the moms that, you know, were Karens could still pretend to be on a diet as they got their salad and just loaded on blue cheese and crap.
Occasion. McDonald's had burger seats. Look at these burger
Forgot about these!
seats. Are they a little terrifying? Sure, but I think...
Can you imagine going into a McDonald's when you were tripping balls? Oh my god! The seats have faces and they're staring at me!
we can all agree that we want them back. And when management started encouraging a more kid-friendly atmosphere, almost every franchisee built massive
the Salmonella Center that was the McDonald's playground.
Tubes, nets, and ball pits to play in while the adults...
But I will tell you, that was the shit as a kid.
Got to enjoy
I
their
used
meal.
to
However, for
annoy
years,
my mom to
McDonald's had
take
been
me
dealing
there.
with injury lawsuits where kids hurt themselves.
Wait. You sit on their face. Look. Vampire. When we talk about these seats over here, let's get back here for a second. These seats, we all know, men, we like to be sat on. But you reverse the role and we sit on their face. Either way, it's a good time.
Climbing around rope ladders and monkey bars. In a 5-year span alone from 1986 to 1991, 1,500 injury claims were filed against McDonald's when kids fell off their equipment or got trapped in one of their structures. Hundreds, if not thousands of injuries went unreported.
The amount of times my mom had to drag me out through a playpen and had to go up those machines.
Those things were filthy. Some places have still tried to hang on to that old school charm well into the 2020s. I found this 1950s retro diner-inspired McDonald's location in Williamsburg, Virginia.
That looks
they
nice.
A whole-ass 1957 Chevy on the inside, just parked in the middle of the restaurant.
I'd eat there just to like get that vibe. That's a nice.
Was, you guessed it, grayed out and turned into another modernized hospital cafeteria a few years ago.
I just want to put this out. That's nice. That's a vibe. I'd totally eat inside there just to be able to experience the vibe. Like, even though it's McDonald's, like, that's decent enough for like a first date. I know some of y'all might be judging me. Chief, you'd take them out on first date? Yeah, first date, coffee, something cheap, you know? It's basically just the interview. You know, you go somewhere, you can sit down for an hour or two, have a discussion. It's not the meal that matters. Now, date 2 and 3 is where you start, you know, going, I like this person. We're going to start investing in them and take them to the nice places. But, you know, fast forward to that, no! That is not even first date material. That is not even me wanting to chill out material. That is, I am driving through, I have to do some work, and I need Wi-Fi material. That is, I am going to be there for the minimum amount of time. Here is, I would chill and vibe. Okay?
A location in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn was redesigned to a 1980s theme for a Marvel movie, and to no surprise at all, everyone loves it. And even though it still doesn't look like a true time capsule, it's just enough retro and modern combined to give the place a lot more soul.
God,
and if you're watching this and
me.
you have a fast food location near you that still has some old school charm, drop it in the comments because I want to see. But the blueprint for the modern fast food gray box, the minimalism, the neutral tone textured wallpaper, the IKEA chairs that hurt to sit in, the inoffensive abstract
This feels
art,
more
the
like a
dim
Chipotle,
industrial
but
lighting,
Chipotle's
can
always
all be
had a
blamed
modern
on
vibe, so I'm okay
Chipotle.
with it.
Chipotle's early 2000s expansion...
Well, F me then! I was literally like, Chipotle's always had a modern vibe. Apparently not.
marked a turning point in the fast food industry. Their concept was called fast casual. You still got your food quickly, but the experience felt more elevated. The menu was simple, the ingredients were marketed as fresher, and the interiors ditched the kid-friendly chaos in favor of something more modern.
Okay, so I was right. You know, Chipotle's always had this vibe. I'm like, I remember in middle school and high school, Chipotle was starting to be all the rage. And we loved going to, McDonald's. Are you shouting out to the bad Wi-Fis? Look, we only used that Wi-Fi because we needed to get crap done. We only used it because we didn't have our data hotspot being fast enough. Because remember, we had our 3G hotspot. Now it's not as bad. Now I'd rather be tethering off of my phone using 5G and eating in my car than going into McDonald's. But like Chipotle, like always has had this like sort of modern aesthetic, but that's their aesthetic, but it's still like modernized to their kind of way of doing things, like these steel tables and everything. And I remember in middle school and high school, that was when Chipotle was starting to like become a big thing for us. And I remember a bunch of us would get Chipotle almost every day. But then again, this is back when like Chipotle was like $7 or $8 for a big ass burrito. And we all learned how to hack our Chipotles to be bigger. Yeah, I've heard about Reticulum. I haven't really played with it too much, but yeah. Yeah, Chipotle's always had this modern vibe, and I think they've done well with it because they've kind of made it their own. But there's a way where you walk into a Chipotle, you would know it's a Chipotle, just because of the chair style, some of the metal art they have, the exposed beams, all this. Whereas every other fast food restaurant that has modernized their look, they all look cookie cutter the same. Does it make sense?
Modern. Because of this, they were able to charge a higher price, and teenagers, college kids, and young professionals were more than willing.
Look at those prices! Look at those prices! I can't get a burrito for less than $10 now. I think last time I paid for a burrito was like $13-14. That's ridiculous. And look at that. The guac, only $1.80 more. I miss $6 burritos too. I remember we used to be able to get the big ass burritos, and they were bigger. They were bigger burritos. They were burritos that were as big as your face. I remember I literally could, you know, eat half and have another meal later. They were that big. Yeah, they didn't skimp out. I miss that. I miss these days. Now you can't get a freaking burrito from Chipotle for less than like, was it $11-12 now? I paid like $14 for another one with guacamole the other day. Yeah.
To pay, but they weren't just paying for vibes. Those 2010s Chipotle burritos.
Look at those! Look how massive that is! That looked like a baby! It was the size of a baby! Sure, my shits were as big as that when they came out and they weren't as pleasant, but you know what? It was satisfying eating that!
Massive. You used to get at least 2 servings of food for one price,
like
which made it comparable to 2 fast food trips. Chipotle's success came at a time when McDonald's and other giants were on a rapid
nap like a baby if you ate it all.
In 2003, McDonald's stock price fell to a...
But I'll tell you, when I was doing sports and everything, they were great. Because, like, you'd eat that basically have everything you need for, like, you'd have a meal before your workout and after your workout. And you got protein in there.
9-year
and
low,
carbs.
And in Q4 of 2023 was the first net loss in profits they ever had, losing $344 million. Public pressure around junk food intensified during this period. The Super Size Me documentary further tarnished the company's brand.
I remember when that documentary came out.
McDonald's restaurants 3 times a day, every day for a month, consuming every item on the chain's menu at least once. At the end of the experiment, the 32-year-old had gained 24.5 pounds, a 13% body mass increased his cholesterol to dangerous levels, and became the proof the media needed to trays on the windows as the face of America's obesity crisis. So while McDonald's scrambled to repair its image, Chipotle was thriving, offering a cleaner, simpler, healthier experience that looked and felt like the opposite of everything fast food.
The serving sizes may not have been healthy, but you could have always split them to 2 meals.
Young campaign to transform the
Forever Young, I wanna be forever young.
playground feel into a cafe-style space. What resulted was a push for a more contemporary aura, accented by terracotta, olive, and gray colors paired with wooden furniture. Of course, other fast food restaurants saw this change and followed suit. I also believe that the success of Starbucks and maybe even the Apple Store had a big impact on the aesthetics of fast food chains. Starbucks proved that people would pay a premium price to hang around in a space that felt upscale. And
we had coffee, we had power outlets, and we had Wi-Fi. That's why we hung out in Starbucks. It wasn't, the upscale thing. Like, they had some really unique Starbucks locations, just to make this clear. Like, they had ones that were inside of banks, inside of, like, old bookstores and libraries, and, you used to get, like, a whole vibe and everything. Now they're a little bit too cookie cutter. It's the same problem. Nobody wants to hang inside of a Starbucks because they got that same BS. They even tried doing the whole, like, you just get your coffee to go kind of situation, and people stopped coming. And it was more that you had the ability to go hang out. Again, first date material, meet someone for coffee. I would rather take someone to a local coffee shop now because they still got this cookie cutter appearance now of Starbucks unless you get some of the ones that have the nice vibe with the furniture and everything like that. Starbucks now doesn't allow you to stay unless you buy something. I get that on one hand, but they definitely don't have the vibe they once did. I like to find the coffee shops that are like retrofitted houses and stuff like that. I like that. But, moving back to the supersize me thing, I've always had an issue with the supersized portions of fast food in America. And I do think we need to shrink some of the portions. I've said that for a while. Like, you go to Europe, they're more reasonable size on the portions. But in the U.S., our obesity problem is we have too much sugar. We also put too much salt on things, too, but that's a different discussion, too. And the portions are just astronomically large. We get large sodas. Whenever I go get fast food, I don't get a soda anymore. Well, I get soda water. And if they don't have that, I will just ask for, like, unsweet tea. But anyway.
Apple taught the entire retail world that an ultra-minimalist design
Starbucks
could signal
doesn't have sofa and nice stairs anymore.
Today,
hard
seemingly
stools
every
that they
fast
want you
food chain
gone.
takes a little bit of inspiration from Chipotle, Starbucks, and the Apple Store, which has majorly contributed to them losing what made them special in the first place. Fast food
Remember those paper crowns, the Burger King crowns? You walked around like, I'm the king.
Restaurants were meant to be bold, fun, and kid-friendly, or
Taco
even
Bell and McDonald's no longer extra large drinks, only large size. Yeah, they stopped doing that a while ago.
The YouTube channel Cheddar that the design choices are nothing more than a marketing tactic.
We have to be perceived as new and fresh and offering food that is new and fresh. What has changed within our restaurant? We want to communicate that to the customer on the outside, and the easiest way to do that is through architecture and interior design.
How can we make it look healthier, but not actually make it healthier? That's basically the gist. I don't think any logical person is expecting fast food to be healthy, but the risk used to be worth the reward. Because beyond the
fast
building
food, no
design
longer free
and
real
modern
food.
branding, it seems like they aren't even trying to make
Whoppers are
the
actually
food
still big.
look
Some at
or
McDonald's
taste
shrunk
good
the hell out of the Big Mac.
Burgers aren't even close to as advertised, with buns flat as a pancake and lettuce that looks like it was left out all night. Places like KFC refuse to change the oil in their fryers, so you can't even taste the chicken anymore. And those so-called crispy fries you ordered look like they were defrosted, placed under a heat lamp, and served without anyone noticing they missed a crucial step. Even legendary YouTuber The Report of the Week, who has spent the past decade reviewing fast food menu items, just about had a meltdown over the decline in quality and service across every big chain in the US after countless bad experiences in 2023.
Instances not as bad as this, but where there have been problems with my order, with the quality, it's just elapsing more and more. And it's not just Culver's. It's every place. McDonald's,
Culver's used to have great burgers,
Taco Bell, you name it. There have been so many places, and I'm sure you've noticed this, that I've reviewed in the last couple years, where the food has just been awful. It's quite frankly disgusting. I hate when this happens. And what bothers me even more is when it's becoming more and more of the norm. When I'm trying out these sorts of items, and time and again, it's some burnt piece of garbage. It's some just vile slop, for lack of a better word. And it's getting to the point now where pretty much every other item that I review is just, it's disgusting.
Yep.
In some way or another. Or it's just so overpriced that it might be alright, but it's like you're burning.
Yeah, Burger King's definitely better than McDonald's these days.
But
I still like Wendy's better than Burger King and McDonald's. But
guilty
there's days I like Burger King more.
It's still cheap, right? Nope. Chick-fil-A, Arby's, Wendy's, Jimmy John's, Chipotle, Taco Bell, Popeyes, and McDonald's all raised their prices by 55 to 100% between 2014 and 2024.
I just want to see something. Inflation calculator. Okay, I just want to... Okay. I'm just curious. Alright? Let's take the inflation. And what do they do it? To 2024, okay? They've outpaced inflation. So between 2014 to 2024, you've had a cumulative rate of inflation of 32.5%. So a dollar item would have cost you $1.33. So let's see. If I remember, a McDonald's meal was something like $7, or that was the average cost. So that's the cost I would expect it to be around. $9, $9 to $10, right? Look at that. Even on the low end, that is significantly higher than the actual cost of inflation of 32.5%. That's ridiculous.
Most of us can remember a time where $5 could fill you up at most restaurants.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd snag a couple of grillers or a fill-up box from Taco Bell, a McDouble, McChicken, and fries, a famous bowl from KFC, and even if you wanted to get full meals, you'd still spend less than $10.
Yep.
What I found shocking is that Columbus, Ohio has the most affordable fast food in the country. The meals still cost $10 on average. Most cities average $12.
That's a damn lie!
To $13 for a fast food meal, and I can say with certainty, at least where I live, that there are plenty of local restaurants serving way better food for $13. Some McDonald's locations were charging as high as $18 for a Big Mac meal. In 2024, the McDonald's president Joe Erlinger attempted to address many of the concerns that Americans had with McDonald's prices significantly rising. What's funny is that they made this graphic that claims to debunk a bunch of myths, while claiming that the facts state that they have...
Hold on. Let's see what the myths are. McDonald's overall 5-year price increases are closely connected to the cost of around... Okay, McDonald's raised prices at a rate nearly double the national rate of inflation. We have determined that to be a lie! 5-year increases are closely connected to the increase cost to run restaurants, which have gone up. That includes increases in restaurant crew salaries up to about 40% since 2019 from data accessible, and food paper costs, also known as cost of good, up about 35% since 2019. Otherwise said, the average input. Yeah, look at this. McDonald's raised prices so much that their average menu prices increased more than 3 times the national rate of inflation. Didn't we just, literally do the math? Didn't we just do the math on this?
Graphic that claims to debunk a bunch of myths, while claiming that the facts state that they have only raised their prices by 20 to 40% since 2019. Like they put this obnoxious claim as a myth. McDonald's medium fries increased by 138%, just to attempt to soften the blow when they say that the fact is that the average price of a medium fries was a 44%.
Yeah, it is cheaper to go down to a sit-down restaurant.
Only a...
It's worked out in my favor, though, Kara, because I end up going to a lot more Caribbean, Jamaican, Indian, Ethiopian, African dishes in general, Mediterranean, all that, because I literally have to look at the price of what McDonald's would cost me as a quick meal, and it's not that quick anymore. You order something in line, you're still going to sit there 10 to 15 minutes half the time. So at that point, I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go down the street to the Greek restaurant or the Indian restaurant or the African restaurant, or it's made me actually eat a lot more healthy because now I'm going to local restaurants, and in the end of the day, I would rather give the money to the local community anyway and local restaurants and businesses than I would like to give it to some mega monolithic corporation.
44% increase for fries that are soggy, cold, and take 20 minutes to get.
Yep.
That's so much better than 138%.
I like how he called it out.
The reality is that fast food has entirely changed its value proposition
it ain't that
to customers
fast
in America. It's no longer about being cheap. It's about being lazy. A professor of marketing at Johns Hopkins said, "These chains are not charity organizations. They're not trying to serve cheap food to people who are complaining about high prices. They're trying to get people who have
What's this that you put down, Kara? Your prices. Let me see this. Hold up. $6.99, $9. Yeah. That sounds about similar to what it is out here. But, like, this is way more than I remember it being. Like, I remember you used to get a whole meal for less than 10, and that was the double quarter pounder you used to be able to get. Yeah.
either stopped going to the store or never
It's fast
went
workers,
there.
$20 an hour here.
Pricing approach is working for McDonald's. Oh.
So, sorry to pause again. I think there's been studies that show that raising the wage isn't actually as detrimental to the overall cost as a lot of businesses think. Look, I used to believe that too. But when you talk about the scalability and how much McDonald's and all these restaurants are actually making in terms of profit, I think they could do fine with paying more to their employees. But the reality is, at the end of the day, they have to show shareholder value and show that they're making more profit. But I think that most businesses need to take the Arizona iced tea approach, which is at a certain point, you have to accept you're making more than enough money. You don't need to charge the consumer more. And the fact that Arizona iced tea, as I recall, recently was discussing raising their prices was killing him that he had to do that. But, like, yeah.
Okay. So, they killed the vibes, ruined the taste, charged way too much money. Is it at least still fast? Well, kinda. The speed of service has drastically decreased as Americans become more dependent on the drive-thru. America runs on urgency. Our cities are built to drive around, not stop and hang out.
Waffle House Fight Club, always worth it. I love a Waffle House.
Are short.
It's great for the beer munchies too.
Us to move faster, work more, and consume more. So we designed an entire meal experience around not having to stop moving. Pull up in your car, order before you speak to a person, get your food in a brown bag, and don't even look inside until you're already merging onto the highway, and stuff the fries down your throat with one hand while the other is on the wheel.
And even when you do order ahead, you're still waiting 15-20 minutes.
That doesn't have time to sit down. But now even that convenience is starting to collapse. What used to be a 3 to 5 minute pit stop has turned into a 15+ minute wait behind a line of frustrated drivers. Even places like In-N-Out are facing major problems, with lines that literally cause traffic on the highways next to them. Pretty much every Chick-fil-A I've ever been to around lunchtime has 2 rows of 20+ cars bumper to bumper.
I've seen
Many
that.
Locations are trying to combat these frustrating wait times by having staff walk around with iPads so you can get that somewhat satisfaction that your order is being taken care of, but it doesn't make the food come out any faster.
Nope, it does not.
You might think that removing drive-thrus in some locations or incentivizing walk-ins would somehow speed things up, but fast food restaurants have done their homework. Research shows that 47% of US consumers would simply avoid going to a store that doesn't have a drive-thru, and twice as many people prefer using the drive-thru to going in store. And that's because of the American go culture, as well as us not prioritizing eating as a meaningful experience. It's just
because most Chipotles I go to,
meals
you have to go into the store, and I actually do like
a time to slow down, talk, share, and connect. Americans treat treat eating as something you do out of necessity between meetings, in traffic, or while staring at your phone.
We have a very unhealthy
who's literally eating a meal while
attachment to food in the U.S. I've said that for a while.
Quick service, combined with fast food's obsession with margins,
Order
is
ahead,
slowly turning
they don't
these
start making the
restaurants
food
into
till I say
massive
I'm here for
robotic
order 1,
garages,
2, 3.
like this
Really?
concept released by Taco Bell in 2022 for their new vision for making service easier than ever before, or the new designs Chick-fil-A is rolling out that prioritize quick service, or Jimmy John's cutting down the size of their restaurant to resemble more of a studio apartment. To make it even more streamlined, restaurants are releasing AI menu stands that replace human staff members, and the response is...
So I actually got to run through a Wendy's that had that. Don't get me wrong, the order was accurate and everything like that in terms of what it was taking and all that, but it kind of just perturbs me a little bit.
Have been mixed, with some customers praising the decision and others arguing this is one step further in the wrong direction.
Yep, I agree.
So correct orders and no more attitudes for no reason. More jobs with human contact are going away. With fast food restaurants doing everything they can to make service seamless, and Americans demanding
to get out of the
even
car
more
to get the order and use
how far
drive-thru.
away are we from a robotic arm extending from a building and just dumping the food right into our mouths? But as grim as the future looks, there is a way to fight this. There is a way to demand change, get better quality food, better prices, better speeds, and an all-around better experience.
Go to your local restaurants. Support local business. Okay, but anyway, go on.
The solution is quite simple, and it's being implemented all over the world. Fast food is better outside of America.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
But by design. Many nations have stricter regulations on food quality, preservatives, and sourcing. In places like Japan, France, or Germany, the ingredients are often fresher, the portions are more balanced,
I can personally vouch for that.
Far more respectful of the dining experience. But this change didn't necessarily happen out of respect, it was by force. Like in France, when 5 activist farmers tore down a McDonald's that was being built in the southern town of Malau in August 1999. They handed out Roquefort cheese at the protest, which they said was to denounce U.S. import restrictions and hormone-treated beef. But this was a calculated attack. In that same week, French farmers dumped 6 tons of manure on a McDonald's restaurant in Arles. This was a...
I always respect the French farmers and how they protest things. They are not afraid to back up and dump manure. Like, seriously, it is like their go-to in protests. Hey, City Hall, you're doing something we don't like. Manure in the front yard. Restaurant, you're doing something we don't like. Manure in the front yard. Like, I like it. They literally go and, like, put shit right up in your face. We Americans need to take a page out of their book. Like, that's the thing I have to say. Americans, we suck at protests. Oh, we're gonna hold our signs and they're gonna listen to us. No, they won't. Drop some fucking manure in their fucking business and you will see. Get a little disrespectful. Literally throw some shit in their face. Like, have you seen the all-out brawls that happens in France between the fire department and the police? Like, it is something to behold. We don't know how to protest. I'm just saying. But I will say, I have eaten fast food outside this country. I have been to Israel, Egypt, Germany, France, Portugal. I've tried, of course, I predominantly like to eat the local cuisine more than anything. But I always like to experiment trying the local fast food restaurants just to compare them. I've had kosher KFC in Israel, kosher Burger King in Israel. McDonald's, there was only 2 kosher locations that I remember. One was in the Tachana Merkazit, the bus station, and then the airport. But the food was still better. I mean, there's McDonald's all over the place, but not all of them are kosher. Just, you know, so when I'm in Israel, I try to do the kosher thing. But Egypt, KFC was bomb. Oh, by the way, in Israel, they have the McShawarma. And yes, in France, they do have the McRoyale instead of the Big Mac. That was great. In Germany, I got my burger with a beer. In Portugal, it's pretty good too. But then you come off and then you get, like, you're in American airports and you have to eat something there while you're waiting for your layover. And my God, it is miserable. trying American food. The quality here is atrocious. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, go overseas, try any of the food there. Even the American versions of food taste better than the food in America. Short of if you go to like a proper farm and, you know, get proper like farm-raised beef and stuff like that. But yeah, I was raised in the country, so cow poop isn't that bad to me. I was raised in the country too. I ain't that afraid of it. In fact, that's where we found our, you know, the good fun shrooms back in high school, and the cow patties. You know, you know.
Symbol of resistance against American food imperialism and the spread of unhealthy, standardized meals. And it wasn't just about the food, they were defending culture, agriculture, and tradition. And it worked. French consumers began demanding locally sourced ingredients, and McDonald's responded. Today, around 75% of the food served in McDonald's France is sourced domestically.
Yep.
Now, this doesn't mean go and destroy your local McDonald's, but it is proof that a protest goes a long way. Also, McDonald's Europe became...
Like I said, don't go destroy McDonald's, but go drop some, you know, cow poop in front of them. Make a point. Maybe a shitty point, but it's a point.
Became the first food service retailer in many markets to sell Marine Stewardship Council certified sustainable fish.
Say what?
The MSC is widely considered the gold standard certification for sustainable wild-caught seafood, because if they did not meet these standards, then European countries would simply not allow them to serve fish. In India, they mostly don't serve beef or pork items due to religious values held by the citizens. In China, they serve taro pies. Taro is a plant native to Southeast Asia whose roots and leaves are used for food in this region. In Saudi Arabia, 100% of their menu must be halal. Therefore, all products served at McDonald's restaurants are inspected and approved by local authorities and Islamic inspectors at the countries of export. The point is, McDonald's and other fast food restaurants will abide by socio-cultural, religious, food preferences, and environmental factors, or they will simply not be allowed to serve food in that country. And they might even complement the country with a vibey atmosphere. They'll serve food in decommissioned planes in New Zealand, a colorful building pagoda in China, or a ski up in Sweden. The end result? Better service, better food, better vibes, and customers who treat eating as something worth sitting down for. All of these point to the fact that fast food restaurants can still be colorful, fun, cheap, and have the best quality food available for their meals. It's just that they only change when people finally start to walk away. This is not the answer you want, but it is the truth. Sure, the buildings are gray and bland. Sure, the service is slow. Sure, the food doesn't taste as good and corporate greed is driving up the price, but you can protest. You can just stop going, and they will be forced to resort back to the things that made these restaurants special in the first place. But until most of us refuse to order from these fast food restaurants, then nothing is going to change.
Yep, and that's part of why I just don't eat at these restaurants anymore. It's just not worth it. It really is not. I'd rather go to a sit-down restaurant. I can go to an Ethiopian restaurant near me. Like a good, 15, 20, 30-minute drive, depending on, you know, wherever. But you can go get, Ethiopian, African, any African cuisine, you know, Caribbean, all that. Spend, 10 to 15 bucks, have a really satisfying, high-quality meal that tastes amazing in the same amount of time it would take me to go order a burger. Have you seen what Apple has done with sideloading on iOS 26? I have not. Oh yeah, they do have massive portions. I go to an Ethiopian place, I know I'm gonna be walking out there with a full stomach. And the great thing about those kind of restaurants, it's not a full, you feel oh my god, I feel horrible. It's I want to go take a walk now. You know, it's a satisfying full. Apple is revoking certification for sideloading. What the hell? So Apple and Google are both trying to do some, you know, underhanded crap to, you know, not let you sideload applications and have control over your stuff. You have extras for the next day as well. Not me. I mean, I'm a fat dude. I'm not as fat as I used to be, okay? If you see me over the past couple of years, you've seen I've definitely slimmed down. but I will always be a fat dude at heart. You know, but seriously, like, I've lost most of my gut. I'd lift my shirt, but I'm pretty sure Twitch ain't gonna like that. They want that ad money. They don't want you to use ad-blocking sideload apps. Yeah, boo. I always love sideloading cracked Spotify on iPhone. Yeah. I just came across your video. Can you enlighten me about Ohio Credit Union? So I actually knew some of the people that actually worked at Ohio. It's a pretty good credit union. I think it's so they actually were a credit union that was formed by the telecommunications, thus Ohio. They were a credit union out in Ohio for that. They do pretty good. Don't get me wrong, they're up there. I haven't personally used them, but I have a few friends that use them. They like them. Credit unions are awesome. Nothing negative about them. Have you ever, as a kid, pirated stuff before? Hold up. I want to make sure I have this here. I really should, you know, do better at organizing my things. Is it under the keyboard? It is not. Although I did find my prank tool there. No, here it is. You ever as a kid pirated stuff before? You're asking a millennial if they ever had to pirate stuff as a kid. You're asking a millennial if you've ever had to pirate stuff, or if I pirated. I don't know a single millennial who hasn't. Like, even of the normies. Okay? And let me make it very clear. Let me make this very clear. All of you, you know, Gen Z and Gen Alpha that are like, oh yeah, we know how to pirate. You know, we're such a hard ass. We did it. We did it better. And we were way better at it than you will ever be. We had piracy so common. Let me put it this way. There's almost no millennial that I know of that actually knows where they learned how to pirate. We just kind of knew it. Maybe you remember your brother or that. Like, I remember my cousin introducing me to WinMX, so I stopped using LimeWire. WinMX was my thing. That was my way to pirate things. And this was before BitTorrent, which, you know, everyone's using now to pirate things. But yeah. Like, do you know how Soulja Boy became popular? Do you know how Soulja Boy became popular? You know, Soulja Boy, crank it, whoa, watch me crank it, watch me roll. You know, that Soulja Boy? Do you know how he actually came to be popular? As the first ever internet celebrity. He got that popularity by uploading his song as other hit other hit artists. So literally, I remember growing up as a kid. Are you downloading Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby One More Time, or are you downloading Soulja Boy? Are you downloading Nirvana, or are you downloading Soulja Boy? Are you downloading Linkin Park, or are you downloading Soulja Boy? Like, no joke. You go to play Britney Spears, and then you just hear, Soulja Boy, crank it, whoa! Soulja Boy, tell him. Like, seriously, that's how Soulja Boy became as popular as he was, because he did this guerrilla marketing campaign by uploading his songs as titled by other songs that we were intending to download. And the reason why, when I gave you that look of, you know, a millennial pirating things, before Apple iTunes was a thing, and Apple, you know, you had the music store from them, your options were going to Virgin Megastore or another CD store, ripping that CD, and then having it on your computer to put onto your MP3 player, like these little ones we had, or when Apple released the iPod with the Apple Music Store, or, the iTunes Store, as it used to be called, that was when we could easily download music because we would go to Napster. We would go to Napster to download music because it was more convenient. Would you download a car? Yes. Yes, we would. And we're downloading cars now, and we're 3D printing them. Yeah, what a time. That's what we called burning CDs. Well, it was called burning CDs because you literally had a laser in your disk drive to burn into the CD the data. It literally was burning into the CD. And then also we had LightScribe. I've said this before. When I was in high school, I actually made a business getting people's mixtapes. Like they'd give me a list of what songs they wanted mixed in, and I'd burn that disc, so they'd have it for their crush or whatever. I used to buy CDs in the stacks, like buy hundreds at CompUSA. And then I'd even offer services like, oh, okay, it's about $10 to, burn the CD for you, mixtape. Do you want any custom artwork in there? It's a few extra bucks. I can, make a custom CD label on there for you and, put a jewel case, or do you want just the sleeve? Now, do you want me to deliver it to your crush's locker? And I even got slick with it. You'd be, have your buddy come over, you'd have them come over, record some little bits in between the songs, like, Kaylee, I want to go out with you on a date, if, like that. Like, I've literally actually helped people burn CDs, that was their prom invite and stuff, and I'd work that into the CD. Oh, I was masterful with it. But yeah, we pirated music, but we were sharing music too. Asking a millennial, did we ever pirate music as a kid? We did that whole thing. Y'all know how to pirate because of us. Chief was remixing. Damn straight I was. It was a service. What's my headset? It's a Bayer Dynamics DT99D with some aftermarket pads from, crap, I forgot where I bought them. But yeah. I used to use VPN back in the day to download free EDM tracks in 2000s before Beatport caught on. Man, Beatport was a thing. But yeah. Yep, I used to burn music in high school. People came to me for that. Yeah. It was amazing because it wasn't that hard to do, but people couldn't figure out how to do it. And it was like, nope, Nero, drop the disc on, burn it. Then you'd fire up the image maker or image label maker, from, shoot. They make labels and stuff like that. I can't remember who they are. But you used to be able to do the whole design. You do the font. It'd be like Kaylee's Mix CD, Justin Hart's, Christie, whatever. Do that thing. And then don't forget, LightScribe. Do y'all remember LightScribe? Oh, LightScribe. LightScribe was cool shit. So we're gonna watch this video. This will probably be the last video for the night. About LightScribe, because now you got me thinking about it. So this is from Technology Connections. This is one of my favorite YouTubers that I have watched for ever. I've watched this guy forever. And he talks a lot about lots of cool tech and everything. This is like a 6-year-old video.
Do you remember this little marketing slogan? Burn, flip, burn.
Yep.
No?
I do.
Well, I can't say I'm entirely surprised. but I'm also a little sad.
Victory has some of the best
That
hackers
was
in the
one
world
of the taglines
with
of
no internet.
LightScribe, the direct disk labeling technology developed by Hewlett-Packard and first released commercially in 2004. What is it? Well, it's a really clever twist on an already common technology. LightScribe used existing optical drive technology to burn monochrome images onto the label side of optical media, either CDs or DVDs. That's right, it's optical media time again here at Technology Connections, where our mission is to stay timely and relevant.
He does not have a beeper!
Can I borrow your phone? Jokes aside, I actually really...
Hold up. What was that poll saying?
Can I borrow your phone?
Should I make a dumb joke about pagers within the first minute of the video? Yes.
Jokes aside, I actually really like the idea of LightScribe, and I think it's an absolute shame that it didn't take off. We'll soon see that it's not too surprising it didn't, but let me explain why I like it so much. LightScribe is a perfect example of my favorite kind of innovation. Take a thing that currently does a thing and make it do more things, or different things. At their core, LightScribe-enabled optical drives are pretty much identical to any ordinary CD or DVD burner. See, you already have a high-powered laser that's able to write readable data on a little plastic frisbee, so why not use that same laser to burn images onto the other side of that plastic frisbee? And that's roughly the exact question that Daryl Anderson, lead engineer of the LightScribe project, probably asked when he first thought up the product, maybe. The bottom side of any writable optical disc is already a marvel of engineering, with heat-sensitive dyes or even advanced polycrystalline alloys that darken when exposed to the heat created by the laser light, therefore allowing tiny little marks to be burned into the surface. These translate into the data that is actually on the disc. If we've made materials that will get darker when exposed to intense laser light, what's to stop us from doing the same thing on the top side of the disc for making an actual label? Well, not much. In fact, only a small modification was needed to turn any ordinary optical drive into a LightScribe drive. And you can see it just here. This little doodad allows the drive to see the rotational position of the disc. See,
LightScribe disk was how fast they deteriorated corrupt data. Yeah.
Pretty much irrelevant. Molded into the plastic of the disc is a spiral pregroove containing the ATIP, which stands for Absolute Time in Pregroove. This not only guides the laser as it writes data to a blank disc, but it also keeps the disc spinning at the correct speed relative to the data being blasted onto it by the writing laser. And staying at the correct speed is all that matters, really. The data can be placed arbitrarily along the disc as far as its physical location goes, and so long as it reproduces the correct sequence of zeros and ones, the correct data will be read. However, to make an image using a single light source on a rotating disc, the disc's exact position needs to be determined. This
you can do a lot with those discs.
LightScribe media to do just that. A LightScribe disc
back in the day, we fit an entire Linux distro or Windows operating system on that 700 megabyte disk.
Brand and format identification in the center ring.
But they got DVDs down here too.
Barcode-looking thing between the spindle hole and the writable portion of the disc. When the disc is placed upside down,
I also remember DVD RAM.
The barcode will line up with that scanner thing. Now the drive can know the disk's absolute rotational position, so it creates a proper image, and not a spirally mess. That barcode also encodes information about the label surface, which is pretty important, particularly because of the difference between CDs and DVDs. Let's talk a little bit more about the disc itself. The top surface of most LightScribe discs is this light tan color. The color comes from the material used in the top coating, developed by Dr. Makarand Gore. Just like the dye coating on the underside, this coating will get darker when it is heated up by the laser. But it differs from the dye layer down below in that it gets much darker, almost black. Through a simple labeling utility, you can create simple text
I can't look it up without losing this video.
Beautiful monochrome pictures, like this one. Well, now this is beginning to highlight the problems of LightScribe. But before we get too far down that particular rabbit hole,
face is just so goofy.
Let's take a look at how this works. I've taken the cover off of this slim drive so we can see it in action. I'm having it make a simple label with the word test. First, you can see the scanner activating to read the barcode on the inner ring. Once I started the printing process, I was extremely surprised at how slowly the disc spins when it's being labeled.
Interesting.
This is nuts. Luckily, we can see the laser shining through. Notice how it flashes briefly at a higher intensity. This is it burning the letters onto the disc.
Really?
What's interesting here is that the laser is switched on at all times. I'm not sure if any LightScribe drives were made that could only burn CDs, so I'm wondering if we're seeing the red laser diode for DVDs burn with a steady glow, and the flashing is the high-intensity infrared laser diode blasting the disc with energy.
Upon filming this, it turned out that my main camera could not see the spot from the laser at all. This leads me to believe it is the infrared laser diode doing all the work. My phone camera did pick up the IR as phone cameras usually do, and that's why the quality isn't as great. Interesting.
Perhaps we're only seeing one or the other.
Yep, just one.
But in either case, this suggests that the drive is actually looking at the surface of the disk, perhaps simply for focus, or maybe it actually checks what it's laid down. Whatever it's doing, I still can't get over how slowly the disk is spinning. That's a surprise. But maybe not. I'll explain in a bit. With the disk completed, we can now take it out, and sure enough, there's the word test, just like we expected.
That's interesting.
But there's more weirdness in the LightScribe universe, like the stark difference between CDs and DVDs. I've created a basic label, and I've burned the same thing onto a CDR and a DVD-R. You might notice that they look mostly similar, but the DVD label is almost blurry looking.
Yeah.
This is an odd quirk in the LightScribe universe, as DVDs and CDs were made very differently. Well, okay, all DVDs and CDs are made differently. In a CD, the data layer is actually barely below the label side of the disc. The laser in a CD player is shining through almost the entire thickness of the disc before the reflective surface bounces it back. But in a DVD, the data layer is actually in the middle of the disc. You can see this even with standard DVD movies. The disc has a seam down the middle, as it's made in two halves. CDs don't have this seam, as they are a single sheet of polycarbonate. Now, for some reason in LightScribe DVDs, the label coding isn't simply placed on the top of the disc. Instead, it's sandwiched between a top clear layer and the data layer beneath it. And this is why a LightScribe drive needs to know if this is a DVD or CD. The drive will focus at different depths depending on which type of media is used. This always struck me as kinda odd, as what's to stop them from putting the same CD-style label coding on the actual top of a standard DVD-R? Putting it in the middle like this meant that all LightScribe DVD labels looked a little soft compared to those of CDs. However, it does appear to increase contrast slightly between light and dark, but that could simply be down to the particular discs I've got here. That said, there was an advantage to this. Firstly, the label surface is more protected in a LightScribe DVD because it's not exposed. And secondly, a fairly common occurrence with LightScribe media is for a white powder to form on top of the black portions of the label.
This is why I like watching Technology Connections, even about old tech I thought I knew.
It was reported to be a harmless crystallization of the label layer. However, it would get on your fingers if you touched it, and wasn't really pleasant looking on the disc. With a DVD, that happened much less frequently due to the protected and sealed nature of the label, and even if it did, at least the powder wouldn't get all over your fingers. So how do you actually create a LightScribe label? Well, first you need to make sure that you have both LightScribe media and a LightScribe-enabled optical drive, plus the necessary LightScribe system utilities and some sort of program for creating labels like
that it made you mad. Yeah, all the time.
You know, easy. But assuming you have all that ready to
go,
it's pretty simple.
We were just talking about that.
The Nero software is about as user-friendly as can be for 2004-ish, and it does something that at first seems really, really weird, but you will quickly learn is totally understandable. I'll add a text box, and as soon as I do so, that box becomes a crescent? Okay. Well, from here, I have a pretty good degree of
I remember that.
I can choose my typeface, its font size, bold and italics, its justification and all that, just like a basic word processor. And then I hit OK, and it gets wrapped around that crescent thing. Well, I can turn that off by unselecting the Bend checkbox, and now things look a little more normal. Let's just do some quick customization here, maybe add a little something extra. And now I think that's a delightful design worthy of a LightScribe label. So now I'll grab my CD, which already has my Awesome Mix 2006 on it, and I'll pop it upside down into the drive. I can now burn the label. So I hit the little button, and now I can select between Draft, Normal, and Best. I can even get a preview of what this will look like on the finished disc, a handy little feature. Of course, I don't settle for less than
try to get my content as dark as possible.
And now here's where LightScribe's weaknesses really come into play. It tells me this will take about 15 minutes. Well, that's a lie right there. This is going to take more like 23 to 25 minutes. Yeah, LightScribe is anything but fast.
Yeah.
But that's not unexpected.
I used to charge extra for those LightScribe labels when I did it.
Inventing the wheel and use existing optical drive technology, and for the most part it did. But let's think for a moment how limiting that was. The laser in a CD burner is normally focusing its power onto a microscopic spot, so all of its power becomes concentrated, and realistically the laser doesn't need to be all that powerful. But if we're trying to draw with it, we don't want it to be focused onto a microscopic point that we can't see. When burning a label, a LightScribe drive actually defocuses the laser so that the point it's burning is larger and actually visible. But
oh yeah, they cost a lot.
Has to travel more slowly, as we now know, way more slowly, because with a less concentrated spot, the energy is more spread out, and the laser can't heat the label as quickly. Bummer. And because the drives were only lightly modified from standard optical drives, the discs could only spin in one direction. That might not seem like a limitation, but that's precisely why the label-making program would bend the text by default.
Yep.
See, the time it takes to burn a label is directly dependent on the range from the inside boundary to the outside circumference that is being used.
You always bought them at Target. I always bought them at CompUSA and Micro Center.
Even if just a thin line is drawn from here to here, the label will take 25 minutes to create. This is because it can't just rock the disk back and forth to make that line. It burns the label just like it burns data, so it has to follow a spiral starting from the inside boundary and going all the way to the outside edge. Remember that test label? It spent the majority of the time with the laser off, and because it can't just skip the blank parts of the label, it takes a long time to write just a single word. But the drive can skip blank sections along the disk's radius. So if you bend the text into a ring, then only this region is actually being used. So the drive can skip all this, burn from here to here, and then it's done. And here's how that comes into play. This disk here, even though it's just a small
until they
amount of
closed.
text, took about 25
Forgot
minutes
about Tiger Direct.
The text gets very close to the inside edge and continues almost all the way to the outside edge. So even though none of this space is being used, the laser still had to travel over all of it. But this disk, with much more written information, only took about 10 minutes. All of the text is contained between these two boundaries, so the inside portion could be skipped, and the drive didn't need to burn
I remember.
Here. So to save time,
they closed CompUSA near me shortly after then because Micro Center just kicked their ass.
Can be made in as little as 5 minutes. If you're okay with 12-point font, this can get down to 2. With that limitation though, how attractive is the system really? Sure, this is more legible than a Sharpie, but if you want to make professional looking labels like this, you'll be spending at least 15 minutes each go and probably more. You could save some time by selecting either the draft or normal settings, but those sacrifice burn intensity and or resolution and will produce a lighter image. And the lengthiness of the burn process isn't the only weakness. You may have noticed how low contrast this atrocity was. Ignoring the fact that it's a monochrome image, come on, we're not making miracles here, this is a rather low contrast affair even when burned on the best setting. LightScribe looks pretty good with black text, but introduce images and things get less optimal. In order to look their best on a LightScribe label, the image should be adjusted to have borderline extreme contrast, an adjustment that is unfortunately omitted from this labeling utility. And the image quality concerns don't stop there. Look a little more closely at these labels and you'll see that the text isn't entirely aligned right. There's a slight shifting going on at many points. Some of
I never really noticed that.
To my particular LightScribe drive, but the format was prone to this happening from time to time. I've even had a few disks come out as a complete mess, likely due to a dirty barcode ring. This is real, by the way. This is supposed to have words on it. And here's one image abnormality that's appeared on every single LightScribe disk I've ever made. You can see the actual spiral pattern of the laser's travel in solidly dark portions. Of course, I think that's pretty neat, but let's be honest, it's a flaw. You're probably thinking of another flaw to LightScribe that kept it from reaching mass popularity: cost. LightScribe drives were probably stupid expensive, and the disks, waste of money. Actually, no. The drives themselves were barely any more expensive than standard drives. Even in the early days, there were plenty of LightScribe-enabled drives that
I remember them being a lot more, though.
Standard drives from some competing manufacturers. Remember, there's not much different about a LightScribe drive, and HP was happy to license it to many manufacturers. By 2005, 6 different drive manufacturers had signed on to make LightScribe drives. And the media was a bit more expensive than standard blank media, but honestly, not by much. Assuming you were sticking to mainstream brands and not bargain basement specials, an equivalent LightScribe disc from the same manufacturer was only about 20 to maybe 50% more expensive.
Yeah, but I bought them in like the stacks of 100 at a time.
LightScribe is pretty much dead, but I recall that a spindle of 50 LightScribe DVDs was about $30, and CDs were between $22 and $25. Honestly, that seemed very reasonable to me, especially because there's an added cost to either paper labels or inkjet printable CDs.
Yeah.
Oh, paper labels. Ugh, how I hated paper labels. That was the single greatest advantage of LightScribe in my eyes.
I remember the paper label thing.
A CD with a paper label never behaves too nicely with the slot-loading players in cars or many Apple products back when they included optical drives and headphone jacks. LightScribe discs just looked great without any compatibility issues, and everyone
you get the paper labels that you could either glue on, or
really,
you get the nice ones with the adhesive, and then you'd press that on with a little CD kit.
A Sharpie and a cheap CD is pretty sufficient, particularly since so many burned discs were just throwaway affairs to begin with.
Right.
And there were still more problems with LightScribe.
I remember I had a binder of like Windows software and stuff that had
and it can
copies of, and
left in direct sunlight or exposed to extreme
maybe pirated.
Heat. And over a period of years, the label will fade regardless, unless cared for. They can last.
Yeah, you just talked about how they licensed it out.
These backup discs for my netbook, that's right, netbook, remember those, are around 7 or 8 years old now.
Yeah, I still have a couple netbooks.
Granted, these are DVDs.
They still exist.
With the inherent protection of the top surface layer. Where is LightScribe today? Officially deceased. You knew it was coming, didn't you? HP officially ended LightScribe support in 2013 by removing its website and even going so far as to say you can find the software you need somewhere else, not here. And while you can still get LightScribe drives and media, it's pretty much new old stock only at this point. Today, you can find the LightScribe utilities you may need at lightscribesoftware.org, a website run by Steve Nelson, who is really going out of his way to keep LightScribe support going. And indeed, I owe him thanks, as I needed to download the system utility to make the discs for this video. But before it died, LightScribe was improved by offering discs in other colors, but
netbooks graduated to Chromebooks, pretty much.
If
I have a Linux netbook that I put together recently.
I think it would have fared better. But then again, that would probably require a much
Actually, I think my Linux laptop's a little smaller than a netbook.
Optical drive, making the drive much more expensive and further limiting appeal. Oh well, it was neat while it lasted. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look into what I honestly feel like is perhaps the most underappreciated development in optical disc history. I don't know what could have been done to make LightScribe a little more popular because, let's face it, how often did you even want to make a nice label for your angsty mixes? And if you needed to make discs professionally, it's just far too slow, and by that point you would be wiser to invest in some sort of screen printing setup or even just ordering discs to be commercially pressed.
Yep.
It was always going to be a niche product, even though it was pretty neat. As always, thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon.
Yeah, I think Blu-ray pretty much was done when that had come out, so it'd have been interesting to have seen that happen, because I think it died off around or shortly before the HD DVD Blu-ray wars were settled. But yeah. But yeah, so it's getting a little late, guys. I do have work tomorrow. Thank you all for joining me. Make sure, if you haven't already, to follow me on all of my socials. I'm on Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, Kick, Blue Sky, Mastodon, and we do have the Discord server as well. You are more than welcome to join. The links are in the bio for y'all on TikTok. The Discord and the Matrix server, we got a great community over on both. Of course, the Discord is definitely way more popular than the Matrix, but we hope that Matrix kicks off over time. And yeah, I will be back on stream tomorrow evening. Sorry I wasn't on earlier like I normally am on Sundays. It was just had to do a bunch of housework and laundry and everything. But I will, as I said, be back on tomorrow evening, probably around like 6:30, latest 7:30, and we'll be doing Borderlands 4 along with some other, videos and stuff we might be looking at. But thank you all. Stay safe. Happy hacking. Stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch. But otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow and maybe on the Discord server in Blue Sky.